Welcome to another episode of Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark. Be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Please like, subscribe, and share. This is always hard talking about this. Grant Solomon's case needs reopened. There's been plenty of cases about the Gracie Solomon and the Grant Solomon. Let me share the Freedom for Gracie. What she has to show the petition, which is to get back off of that petition where I was on. We'll go to Freedom for Gracie, the news outbreak, and such. Freedom for Gracie, this is Gracie Solomon's brother. And I would say I feel the father is 100% responsible for his death. Hello, everyone. Hello, brother. Good to see you. Go ahead and share the screen. This really upsets me. It's kind of hard to do. The Freedom for Gracie Act. She said this is about her brother's investigation into the death of her brother. And I need to go ahead and stop my audio so that you'll be able to hear me. Thank you all for coming.
Of evidence. In 2018, Grant Solomon called his guardian ad litem and told her he feared for his life. That night, he ran away from his father's house for good. July 20th, 2020. The day of his death was the first time Grant had been alone with his father in nearly 2 years.
Did somebody
I'm telling
down
him.
there and talk to him?
Yeah, somebody talked to him. Shit. Gee, there's blood. What, is he facing up or down? He's facing up. They said he may aspirate. We need to hurry.
Yeah, but how did the skull crack open and the brain be exposed?
Those rocks, Angie, we don't know.
Okay, so his head was laying in the rocks.
Yes, the back of his head, he was straight up, looking straight up. So the back of his head was on the rocks,
Like straight up, like this.
But who knows? But yes, well, like not that tilted back, like he's laying in bed, or But here's the thing: I don't know if he got, like, let's say by chance the back door caught him and he got knocked out somehow when he first hit, and it drags him through the parking lot down the ditch, and he tumbles down through the ditch. His head could have hit 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, but you never made it down there.
Not all the way down.
And you didn't open the truck doors.
No. Nobody opened. Nobody touched him or the truck, because there were a couple dudes.
And you just saw it here and was like, I got a call.
Oh, I got a call because there's no way we can help him. Somebody at a higher
and
level.
You could see from here that he was not.
Yes. Oh no, I'm right here.
Right.
Yeah. I'm right here. Like right here, like laying down. I'm laying down under, sitting
right here. Yeah.
And the crews get here, and immediately, they've got fire trucks and ambulances, and guys are getting out of and they're starting ripping jacks and braces. Because I knew in my mind, even if, it would take maybe 20 men to pick up the front end of the truck. And even then, the weight of it could roll So I knew we needed equipment quickly. And so they go out and they're jacking it up. And immediately a police officer says, Mr. Solomon, we need you to come with us in here. And at the moment, I was mad. I was like, don't take me from my son. Don't take me. The bumper's probably resting against there. So the right front tire is probably about where Sam's knee is, or right in here.
Yeah.
And then the left front tire is probably right in there-ish. You know.
His father says his truck dragged him along the parking lot, down into the rocky ditch, and miraculously up the other side. The evidence tells another story. There was no blood found in the parking lot. Grant was wearing a t-shirt and shorts. His body didn't have a single scrape from the asphalt. His hands, knees, and elbows were clean. His shoes and socks were in perfect condition. Grant died from a single fatal blow to the back of the head. The evidence is clear. There were no tire tracks from the parking lot. Not a blade of grass was bent. The position of the truck, the direction of the tires, the lack of real damage. The evidence proves the truck did not roll backward into the ditch. The truck drove forward into the ditch. The tire tracks prove it. Indisputable evidence that proves the father is lying. Grant always wore glasses. He couldn't see without them. They were found inches from the sidewalk, not in the parking lot or under the truck. The police department never interviewed Aaron Solomon beyond a quick conversation at the crime scene. They cleared the scene in under an hour, leaving Grant's cell phone, hat, and glasses in the grass. Under oath in family court, Aaron told an entirely different story than the one he told to responding officers. He tells yet another story on video. At the hospital, Aaron quickly began calling the shots, even though he had not had physical custody of Grant in 2 years. Before Angie could arrive, Aaron had made all the decisions, including declining organ donation and refusing an autopsy. The history of domestic abuse box was left blank. There was a long, terrible history of abuse. Angie had even warned the sheriff of Williamson County in writing that she feared for their lives. She wrote an elder at Grace Chapel. They said they couldn't help her. The police told her the same. They couldn't help her. The Gallatin PD told Angie to do a real investigation. They had to have the smoking gun, the truck. The truck was in Aaron's possession, and they said there was nothing they could do. Aaron Solomon refused to have a forensic exam done on the truck. What kind of father wouldn't want to know, unless he already knew? Aaron drove the truck for months until it disappeared. Angie discovered Aaron had salvaged the truck, fraudulently claiming it was totaled. At the last minute, she purchased the truck at auction and finally had the forensic exam done. There was no damage to the truck, except for superficial and intentional vandalism to make it appear totaled. The forensic exam concluded Aaron Solomon's story was a lie. The authorities didn't want to hear it. They refused to look at it. A private investigator finally found the insurance agent Aaron used. What kind of insurance agent doesn't want to be found? Brad Riddle. The first thing he said was, "How did you find me?" He refused to answer any questions, saying they would have to subpoena him. The authorities were alerted. And then, nothing. Again. Aaron Solomon has been founded as a substantiated perpetrator of child sexual abuse against his daughter, Gracie. The Gallatin Police Department. Are they covering up for their own incompetence? Or is it something more sinister? Stupidity? Corruption? Is it because the governor of Tennessee went to church with the accused murderer? Is it because the accused murderer was a local celebrity, a former news anchor, a lifelong con man who fooled an entire community?
Turned out that this is a case that had come to the attention of the director of the DA's conference, as well as to a very experienced district attorney. They had both been to the crime scene, as I understand it. They had investigated.
What is their excuse now? The death of Grant Solomon has never been thoroughly investigated. A parking lot report is not an investigation. Demand a real investigation. Freedom for Gracie. Justice for Grant.
Okay, could y'all hear a few minutes ago what I played? Okay, here is additional investigation reveals Aaron Solomon likely killed son Grant. This was by Anglican Watch. And I need to make sure that I do go ahead and do this banner. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. So, without further ado, Anglican Watch has spent the last several days investigating evidence in the death of Grant Solomon. For those just visiting the site for the first time, Grant died at age 18 in Gallatin, Tennessee, after allegedly being dragged by his truck. The circumstances are highly questionable, and his father Aaron was the only witness. Thus, many believe that Aaron killed his son. Our conclusion: Aaron killed Grant. In our investigation, we reviewed the forensic examination of Grant's truck, photos, statements from witnesses, and more. In doing so, we drew on the expertise of several coroners, accident reconstruction experts, insurance adjusters, trauma physicians, and police officers. There are 4 universal conclusions, with none of our experts expressing any doubt as to the accuracy of these conclusions. They all agreed that Grant was not dragged by his truck. The fatal head injury Grant sustained did not occur in the parking lot. The most likely perpetrator was Aaron, or another person may have assisted him. While it's impossible to assess Aaron's mental health without an in-person examination, the record shows that his behavior is consistent over time, suggesting an individual with narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. We'll go through these conclusions in order. Allegations that Grant was dragged by his truck. On this issue, none of the evidence supports this conclusion. That includes the medical records, which reveal no injuries consistent with the outcome. Similarly, an examination of the truck does not support this conclusion. The black box electronic control unit in the truck reveals that the truck was driven to its resting point above Grant, with the black box recording steering, braking, and the truck in drive versus park or neutral. Here in the printout for the black box with highlighted parts in red, it records everything in the final 5 seconds before the so-called accident. There's vehicle speed that went on, that it was going 14.3 miles per hour. Accelerator pedal, it was started at 12.5 and went to 33.3. The percentage, the engine throttle, the engine RPM, all that's right there too. The steering input degrees was 48.0 and then went to 76.5. So evidently, look at these numbers, how they swiftly changed and stuff, you know? Like it was on purpose. Shift position drive. It was never in reverse. Y'all see it? Y'all see the D's right here? It's in drive. There was no way that truck backed up. Yes, but you know what? A lot of people still are not wanting to hear it. The police force and everything, probably because Aaron Solomon goes to that to church where the governor goes to, that they're covering up all the sex abuse stuff, you know. And even the governor, there's a senator, state senator Jack Johnson, and his wife. That's a judge as well here in Tennessee. I say corruption. What y'all say? Vehicle speed increased from 3.7 miles per hour to 14.3 miles per hour. Accelerated pedal, 0% increases indicating the driver is accelerating. Steering input changes indicating driver steering the vehicle. Vehicle shift position indicates the transmission was in drive. And see, it's all because he was going to tell about his daddy sexually abusing his sister. This is all about covering up sexual abuse. And this governor and all that are covering it up, are doing nothing about it. The evidence is plain, in plain sight. It's plain right there. I don't care that Aaron Solomon won a lot of money. I don't care he got a lot of money from an aunt dying. I could care if he's a millionaire. I care about Gracie and Grant Solomon. I care about Angie Solomon. I care about them because they're victims in this case. And all these people not doing nothing about it. And then guess what? There's a lot of news articles and podcasts that got this story on there. You know, and Aaron Solomon even went to the school video recording of the girls during PE. Gracie Solomon's daddy still went to that church school thing, recording the girls in PE, then hitting them up in Facebook Messenger, trying to seduce these kids. Who's protecting these new kids? Are they shutting them up too? This is going on today. And y'all are covering it up and not protecting your kids and these other kids. How dare you? Yet Governor Bill Lee, yeah, there's some new abuse laws, but you don't adhere to it. How about you, Senator Jack Johnson, and your wife over there that was over there at that other church where a kid was messed with in Sunday school by the Sunday school teacher, and y'all didn't prosecute him? They said, well, the kid would get over it. He's young enough. What about the other student in school that was raped by 5 other boys that done sexual things to him? And y'all did not. Y'all just dismissed the case entirely. Entirely. What's up with this? What are y'all covering up? Are y'all a big sex scandal? Now y'all making it look like y'all's got child trafficking right there because you're not going right there protecting. And Aaron's got money. So if you're letting them do it because of money, that's like child trafficking, is it not? You're doing this for the benefit of money. And you got the audacity. The minister there had the audacity to pray for us people that speak up for people that have been sexually abused. You got the audacity to say and pray that God will get rid of us. How dare you? How dare you? That's more devil. That is not God. You evidently don't have the same God I got. Because how dare you? Because you should be praying for repentance. You should be praying to try to help the children instead of harm the children, as it says in the Bible. And I will show that verse gladly again in this banner right here. Get it ready. But whoso shall fear one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Well, guess what? I love it when they're going to get that payback and you're going to get that. You're going to have to tie a noose around your neck and a millstone and you're going to be drowned in the depths of the sea. All because of the bullshit stuff that you're doing. You're covering up. You're doing the devil's work. You're not doing God's work. How dare you? Keep on letting these people and kids get hurt. How dare you let Aaron Solomon go in there and mess with the kids? How dare you let him get involved in an organization that protects kids and for sex abuse where he's involved in that, where he could get more victims possibly? I don't care if he donates money to them. Still, he does not need to be around it. He is a pedophile, he is a rapist, and I deem him as a murderer too. And as long as y'all are protecting him and defending him, guess what? Y'all are guilty from association. Y'all are 100% guilty association. Going to the truck's forensic report, data highlighted in red is key information and reveals the truck did not roll. It did not roll at all. He intentionally. Plus, the medical evidence shows that he had 2 sets of bruises, which is consistent to being hit with a baseball bat. He lured his son over there saying baseball practice when there was no baseball practice that day. He knew there was no baseball practice, but he called his son up to show up there and said there's baseball practice. Yes, exactly. Exactly. The data, we don't need to do the things about, they said the death penalty and stuff. Just do what the Bible said. Tie a noose around their neck and throw them to the depths of the sea, right? The Bible clearly says it. It would be better for him to do that than to harm one of these little ones. Yeah, it was planned. He didn't feel like getting out, and he was sick at the time. And yet he said that it's a ball practice. So he went and did what his daddy said. And see, he had just turned 18. So he turned old enough where he could go against his father and go and say, he was fixing a witness and say, my daddy's been messing sexually with my sister. He was about to be the witness for this. And all these police, they didn't call him back to go to the jail to do a police report. No, they just did the honest thing thing. And you do a scene cleanup, don't you get all the things? You get his hat, and get his glasses, and get the cell phone. But no, all that was left behind as well. The cell phone was not even damaged right away. When the daddy ends up going back and getting it later, he ends up damaging it. This was damaged when he, you know, got hurt. No, you damaged it to make it look like that. We all know that. The data above reveals that the truck wasn't dry the entire time, and someone was steering it. See, it's got the evidence too that somebody was steering it. The truck came to a rest when someone applied the brakes. Examiners also noted that Grant's cell phone and glasses were found near him The cell phone was undamaged at the time, but damaged after Aaron returned it. See? Strangely, Aaron knew the whereabouts of Grant's phone following the latter's death. All you do is got to have an app on your phone, and that app would go like that in pinpoint. You know what I'm saying? So that, they could easily do that. It's scary. Well, these may seem like minor reference points. They have immense significance in this situation. Why? Because loose objects in a dragon accident quickly separate from the victim, even when in pockets. Moreover, glasses are usually found at the point of impact, not 60 feet away, where Grant was when EMS technicians found him. Moreover, as noted previously, photos of the parking lot and grassy area above the ditch reveal no evidence supporting Aaron's claim of a dragging accident, nor do the medical records reveal the bruises even when a vehicle drags someone. In that scenario, there should be two sets of bruises, one at the height of the bumper or other point where the vehicle struck the victim, the other at the multiple points where the victim struck the pavement. These are usually extensive given the force of even a slow moving vehicle. Thus, the absence of these bruises on Grant make it impossible that he was dragged by his truck. The head injury. We've covered this topic extensively, so we won't rehash all the data. Suffice to say, the cause of death was almost certainly Grant's head injury and resulting blood loss. No, it wasn't you. It was the daddy, Aaron. The daddy one. I think so too, Jackie. Based on the medical records, we identified Grant's head injury as the only significant injury. In this context, bruises on Grant's face, hip, and waist are consistent with being struck from behind in the head with a blunt object, possibly while bending over a low object like the front of a vehicle. The bruises indicate initial impact after being struck. So after he was struck by the vehicle. You see that? Because it was followed by a second set of bruises when Grant fell to the pavement or other hard surface. But these bruises are not consistent with dragging, as they are too limited and not in the correct locations. Again, none of this data is consistent with Aaron's depiction of events. Plus, if you listen to his 911 call, he was saying that two or three other people was over there with his son in the ditch, and he was acting like he was talking to, the people on 911, on 911 and talking to the people that were in the ditch. But when you hear the sirens and everything, and when they showed up, there was nobody there, y'all. There was no other person there. Why did they not get him for that? Using the 911 call and knowing he lied about that. But there's automatic proof right there. The likely perpetrator was Aaron. Next, we come to the issue of who likely killed Grant. On this score, we concluded that Aaron is the most likely subject. Aaron Solomon. Let me put it, Aaron Solomon. In addition to being the only person on the scene, several secondary issues support the notion that Aaron is the culprit. These issues include alleged variations in Aaron's depictions of events over time, his refusal to go to Grant while remaining at the top of the hill. If your kid was laying down there at the vehicle and he was saying that the car tires ran over him, and guess what? It didn't. Car tires did not run over him. His claims that several people were on the scene There's no evidence to support his claim, and to the extent anyone else was on the scene, that person would likely have been a participant in the attack on Grant versus a bystander. His retention of Grant's truck, followed by a seemingly fraudulent effort to offload it, like we had heard, that's how they ended up getting the evidence, the black box, which I'm surprised they didn't go ahead and try to remove the black box. I guess he didn't think of that, did he? Grant's baseball bat, the weapon likely used, has never been recovered. So if he went to baseball practice, don't you think his baseball bat would have been with him? Was Daddy calling him he's got baseball practice? Was Daddy used his own bat against his son? Possibly, because it's never been there. It's never been recovered. That's probably the blunt object used. Aaron's claim that Grant went to the rear of his vehicle before it started to roll is entirely unsupported by the evidence. Aaron's alleged statement against interest, in which, in front of witnesses, he stated that he killed his kids. His son, what? In front of witnesses, he stated that he killed his son. Also, because there was no blood in the parking lot. If he was really hit in the parking lot and dragged across the parking lot, there would be blood. Grant was assaulted elsewhere on the property or at the remote location. I would say he was attacked right where his glasses were. Wherever his glasses landed, that's probably. Both of these scenarios make it likely that a second person was involved, but Grant would not have been able to drive his truck to the scene following the attack. Okay. Also, as we discuss in a moment, Aaron's behavior over time, as described by family and third parties, is consistent and evidences someone likely both a narcissist and a sociopath. Plus, when the family, Grant wanted to donate organs, and they would not let him do it. They hurried up and did something with his body right away, so there could not be further investigations. I remember that as well. On this issue, it's important to note that diagnosing someone absent in person meetings and specialized training is impossible, and domestic relations is an ugly area of the law where it's in the best of circumstances. Parties are too close to the matter at hand to be impartial, and things get spectacularly ugly. And see, when they had him went to court, the question was like, "Don't make me go with him." The judge said, "You're going with him." "But he sexually abused me. He raped me. He raped me." Leave with your daddy. They did not care. They did not care at all. But we reviewed various reports from Aaron's family, social workers, and third parties, and a consistent portrait emerged. The portrait includes multiple indicia of narcissistic personality disorder, including an uncanny ability to tell people what they want to hear, tremendous charm when seeking narcissistic supply, seeing children as extensions of himself, there to meet his needs with little other interest. In Gracie's case, this extends to sexual gratification. In Grant's case, it was the vicarious recognition Aaron received from Grant's athletic success, an expectation that Grant would play professional baseball, something Grant did not want to do. He focuses on appearance. He has a sense of entitlement. He has narcissistic rages, which he did. If you can remember, his Angie Solomon, his ex-wife of Aaron, had she was pharmacist, so she's a smart lady. She is a smart lady, and exactly, and she was a witness. You know, he wrapped the cord around his wife's neck, trying to choke her. He twisted around, trying to say that she tried to kill herself, tried to hang herself, and they believed her. I mean, they believed him. I mean, they believed the abuser. An utter lack of empathy manifested in indifference to the welfare of others. All he cares about the welfare is his. I guess what that whole church seems like. And Jack Johnson, that sounds like you, and it sounds like your wife, that's the judge, and it sounds like Governor Bill Lee of Tennessee, because you're not caring about nobody else. You're not caring about these children. All you're caring about is your own self and how it makes you look and feel. How dare you all? An inability to maintain close, lasting relationships, utter contempt of those in the narcissist discard phase, when the narcissist no longer has any use for a person. So he had no use for him no more, you know? He just had no use for him because you know why? Because he was about to get in trouble because Aaron was about to testify on what his daddy did. So of course his daddy didn't have no use for him. No, because he's not going to back him up. He's going to end up telling them that what exactly he did, and he should. Grant did not deserve any of this. Neither did Gracie. Freedom for Gracie and justice for Grant. They got those names out there. Similarly, and you can look them up on YouTube. Freedom for Gracie and justice for Grant. Similarly, we identified multiple, well, we did that too on those. We identified multiple indicia of antisocial personality disorder, H2, the late Danny Moss, the preferred term, versus sociopathy. These factors include an ability to seem innocent and guileless, an ability to lie readily on the spur of the moment to suit the person's need at the time, a history of violence and intimidation to control others, Machiavellism, an utter lack of an underlying moral or ethical reference point, careful concealment of deeply held biases against others based on race, religion, sexual orientation, or other factors, ability to manipulate perceptions of third parties, lack of adherence to social norms and laws, included allegations by Grant that Aaron accessed both adult and child porn while on his home computer, which Grant described as vile. I didn't know that part, did y'all? I did not know that Aaron Solomon got child porn on his computer. By all means, y'all feds need to get involved. You FBI agents, you TBI agents, get involved in this. Go hunt down his computers. Go hunt down all his backup on his Facebook profiles. Y'all can do that. There's records of all the letters that he's wrote to all these kids. There's records. They got them. They're still there. How about y'all doing your job and getting this taken care of? Protect the kids. Y'all want to say that y'all's big on protecting the kids. How about doing it? Not just saying it, doing it. We're tired of it. We are over tired of it. We demand action. And I know my neighbors hear me screaming right now. Given Aaron's track record of violence towards his wife, son, and daughter, including his attempt to kill his wife, we conclude that his behavior and likely multiple personality disorders increase the likelihood that Aaron murdered his son. And remember the bedroom to Grant's? They had a lock on the outside where he could not leave his bedroom unless his daddy unlocked the padlock that was out there. So that's when he locked his son in there. It's when he was in there doing these sexual things to his sister. That's when the daddy locked his son in so he couldn't go and interrupt his bad behavior on raping Grant's sister, raping his own daughter. How dare you sick? I try not to cuss. I try not to cuss. Note that we are not posing specifics from various reports by protective services and others to afford Angie and Gracie privacy, but we are confident that the information supports our conclusions. We also note that Child Protective Services concluded that Aaron was sexually abusing Gracie, and the details we have seen support that conclusion. Yet, he was given custody of her. Then they were given custody back to the mother, which was, like I said, she's got a good job, she's a good person, she tried to protect her kids. But then Aaron said, well, she's abusive and all this and tried to bring this out and said that all this fault against her. So CPS come and took the daughter away from her. So now CPS is raising her daughter where she doesn't have custody of her own daughter. All because of this narcissist. All because of this bullcrap with the judicial system. All because of this. And we got all the evidence stacked against them. We got the evidence stacked against CPS. We got the evidence stacked against Jack Johnson and Deanna Johnson. That's a judge here in Tennessee. Y'all look it up. Correction in Franklin, Tennessee. Y'all find about Jack Johnson in Franklin, Tennessee. Y'all see the other cases and there where they're protecting and defending and just letting the cases go about these kids that's been sexually abused. Look it up, y'all. Y'all find out there's a lot of stuff going on. And they wanted to put a stymie on where we would not be allowed to investigate any of these certain kind of cases also. Put a flyer and out of this monster if I stayed near him. The rally and protest to get the father back in court with all. Well, not more than that. They also need to do something with the Senator Jack Johnson, who's allowing this stuff. And they even remember how, when they were saying, like, Tom Wells, why do you keep going to Franklin, Tennessee? I can't help but wonder parts of me whether he knows Jack Johnson and Deanna Johnson. I can't help but wonder whether Don Wells knows them or not. You know what I'm saying? I can't help but wonder that. Because I remember all the myths when people were saying that, why are you going to Franklin, Tennessee? And all this corruption has happened here in Franklin, Tennessee. I can't help but wonder. A review of Aaron's conduct towards family members. Yeah, Jack Johnson, he's Senator Jack Johnson, okay? And you look at him in Franklin, Tennessee, and look up also Judge Deanna Johnson, that's his wife. And you look up that certain church that they're affiliated with. There's a review of Aaron's conduct towards family members, an evaluation of Aaron's veracity included. I'll show you a little tidbit on a little thing that Well, y'all need to go see. All right. I'm not going to show you too much of it because of the fact, out of respect. But if y'all look up Kendall Ray and y'all follow her, okay? They actually, that is the daddy right there. See him? That is Aaron right there. That is him. But right here, they actually had little things on Aaron and all. Did they want to? See, this is his girlfriend right here of Grant's. You know the boy that was killed? Okay, and then exactly. Uh-oh. I didn't mean to go so far up. But I would like y'all to end up watching her. So she went ahead. This is his ex-wife. So this lady actually went ahead and interviewed them. Okay, okay. Let me go to.
A screen and just get it back up crazy. But because of some of his life circumstances, he was forced to grow up faster than he should have. He juggled school, his wonderful relationship with his girlfriend Hannah, and sports, all while living under a roof of a man who, according to Angie, didn't hesitate to emotionally and physically harm him.
Hi, I'm Angie Solomon, and I'm Grant's mom. To tell you a little about Grant and my relationship, we were very, very close from the minute he was born. When he was placed in my arms, he looked me straight in my eyes, and we actually have that picture, eyes wide open. It was really that way all the way until July 2020. Even though we were separated for 5 or 6 years by their father, Grant and my relationship never changed. It was always palpable that I could feel him and he could feel me, and that's the same with Gracie too. Grant was, and I have struggled with was and is, but Grant was he was just wonderful. I could talk about him all day. He was obviously so brave. He was an old soul. He had a photographic and an auditory memory, which I was incredibly jealous of. He was such a loving person to everyone that met him. His smile drew everyone to him, but then he genuinely cared back. He would check on people that he had just met through Snap or Instagram or all these things that everyone uses today, but he wasn't just on there to have a streak. He was very funny. He was incredibly spontaneous with laughter and to get people to laugh, and it seems like he always knew when people needed to laugh. Gosh, I miss him so much. He was a big guy. He was 6'4", 210. He was a great baseball player. He was a great pitcher. He had 6 pitches. He threw from 5 different positions or stances that he taught himself. He was a dealer. He was a batter's nightmare. He was also a great basketball player. Baseball was his sanctuary, though. Basketball was where he says he took out his anger. And it was just filled with love. He was filled with God. He was very, very godly. He always put himself least and lowest. He would ask me 100 times what I was going to do to get them out and get them back. Grant was determined. Grant was incredibly smart, as I mentioned earlier, but he was a National Merit semifinalist. He was just everything, not just to me, Gracie. He was our rock. He was wisdom. He's the heart and soul of our family. Now we're trying to still learn to adjust to be here without him.
Hi, my name is Gracie Solomon. I'm Grant Solomon's sister, and me and Grant had a very beautiful relationship. We were very close. We always leaned on each other when we needed to. Through all the hard times that we endured together, we just had each other's back, and he especially had mine. He was a protector. He was kind. He was very smart. He loved everyone. He was very lovable, and he had such a beautiful soul.
Hi, my name is Hannah Johnson. I was Grant Solomon's girlfriend. Grant and I originally met because we went to the same high school together. Like everyone else, I was extremely drawn to him and his character, and there was just such a light about him, it was hard to go unnoticed. I think the very first encounter I remember with Grant was he was at a pottery place that I was at, and he was sitting down painting pottery with his mom and sister. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, like this varsity athlete is taking time to paint pottery with his mom and sister. That's really admirable. But I think we officially met because one of my close friends introduced us, and then we started hanging out and became inseparable ever since. And then later down the road, that's when we officially started dating. Grant and I dated for around 2 years, and also during the time of his passing. Now, it is extremely hard for me to try to capture all that Grant was into words, but I'm going to try to with the best of my ability. Grant was the most loving, caring, dependable, respectable human I have ever met. And not only was he those things to me while in a relationship, he implemented that on and off the court and field with his teammates, his friends, his peers. And that's why he was such a leader. And people were drawn to him because of that. He was also an old soul and loved old music and was very old-fashioned. He was such a gentleman and treated me so well. He really aimed to protect the women in his life. He greatly cared for his mom, Angie, and his sister, Gracie. He was such an amazing human. And while being an old soul at the same time, he was extremely goofy, and he knew when to be serious in the right moments, and then at other times knew when to appropriately be funny and let loose. And that was one of my favorite things about him. He was just so special, and I miss him greatly.
Now, something you will hear me continually say throughout this video is that Aaron denies these allegations. And although I'm not working with him directly on my coverage here today, I will be sharing all of his responses that I could find about the allegations being made against him. I also did try reaching out to his lawyer for comment and never got a response, but at least I tried. Unlike Angie and Gracie, Aaron has not been super public about his version of events, and I will let you draw your own conclusion about why that is. So Angie says that Grant was only 7 years old when she first found out that Aaron was cheating on her. But not only that, he was also grooming underage girls and hiring prostitutes. And this is all while working as a sports anchor in Nashville.
Hello and welcome inside Sports Sunday. I'm Aaron Solomon. Titans training camp is less than 2 weeks away, and players and coaches are getting some last-minute R&R, which means you could see Titans defensive line coach Jim Washburn on his motorcycle somewhere out in the countryside. He feels at home out there. Coach Wash enters his 8th season in the NFL looking for another Pro Bowl performance from one of his guys. In his first 7 years, he sent 5 defensive ends to the Pro Bowl. Not bad, considering the AFC only sends 3 each year.
On the outside, he was this public, well-respected and well-connected person in their community as well as the industry that he worked in. And unfortunately, Angie says this was not the first indication that her husband wasn't the man that she thought he was. Since they met, Angie said that he had always been physically abusive to her, and that only continued and worsened over the years. And it was that same year in 2008 when Angie decided that she needed professional help. She needed professional help to talk through everything that she was going through and cope with the trauma that she had experienced for years. However, she didn't feel like she was able to get that help. Instead, she felt like Aaron had complete control of everything in her life, and that included who she spent time around. And she says for many years, she wasn't allowed to be around anyone else by herself. She wasn't allowed to speak to other people alone without Aaron hearing everything that she said. He literally controlled every aspect of her life, which is the sad reality for so many people in abusive relationships. And I mean this literally. Angie told me that Aaron would go with her everywhere, like running errands, or when she would get her hair done, he would literally go, and in her opinion, tell anyone what happened. Angie says that she was terrified that telling someone would force Grant to have to testify against his own father in court. And after all, Angie says that Aaron told her that he would take the kids away if anyone found out about this. And I can only imagine the fears that went through Grant's mind and Angie's mind if they thought about him telling someone what happened. Although I do know that Grant would have done anything to protect his mother, even if that meant testifying against his own father. But I will share that the prospect of Grant going up against his father in court was a threat that they believed Aaron couldn't take. And sadly, Angie says that this alleged attack wasn't the end of Aaron's wrath. That same day, he ends up calling her parents and the local hospital to let them know falsely that Angie had attempted to take her own life. And this resulted in Angie being taken to Parthenon Centennial Hospital in Nashville for a suicide attempt that never actually happened. But of course, while she was there, she explained her situation to hospital staff. And once they heard everything that was going on, they advised her to get a restraining order against Aaron and to get a divorce. And of course, this is what she wanted to do. However, she feared that these actions would result in further retaliation. In a written medical report from the hospital, that the admitting physician spoke with Angie's outpatient psychiatrist, who explained in summary that they had a working plan in place for her to take her kids and go somewhere safe. This same report also stated that Angie
Other foundations I've tried that are so thick and cakey. The more makeup you put on, the older you look. The coolest.
That Angie was not suicidal, nor did she have any history suggesting that she's attempted to take her own life in the past, which means that the reason that Aaron said she needed to be hospitalized was false. And as soon as she returned home from this hospital stay, it became clear why Aaron did all this. On May 11th, 2013, after Angie gets home, she is horrified when she realizes that Gracie and Grant had been taken by Aaron. Aaron had finally done what he had always threatened to do. He took the kids from her, and Angie was just beside herself. Angie is a wonderful mother. She loves her kids more than anything in the world, and this was the absolute worst case scenario for her. Oh, and this just so happens to be the same day that Aaron starts receiving the $100,000 monthly payments that were outlined in his aunt's will. And you can make of that what you will. Obviously, Angie starts frantically trying to figure out where her kids are, but after no one is answering her calls and texts trying to locate them, she is absolutely fed up. So she decided to reach out to someone at the Metro Nashville Police Department to report a kidnapping and explain her situation. At this point, now that her worst nightmares come true, she feels that she has nothing left to lose. And she says that in this process, she started to get a little glimmer of hope that she felt like people were finally starting to believe her. But that was short-lived. She says that basically out of nowhere, her report was blown over and they told her that there was nothing that they could do. And obviously, I cannot say with certainty that there was some type of corruption going on here, but in my opinion, this is weird. And things like this do not just blow over randomly. And because her report of abuse was dismissed, Angie felt like she would only ever see her kids again if she abided by Aaron's rule. And the number one rule of Aaron's was don't tell anyone anything or else. So on May 15th, she ends up seeking out her own lawyer. But this is when she finds out that Aaron had already started seeking a divorce and that he was filing an order of protection against her on behalf of himself and their children. If that doesn't resonate with you, let me say it another way. In my opinion, Aaron was spreading vicious lies that Angie was mentally ill and a threat to her own children. Therefore, he and the kids should be legally protected from her. And I can say that these were lies because Angie has literal proof from her psychiatrist that she was not mentally ill and not a threat to her kids. But things just kept going downhill from here. At the end of May, just one day after he returned home with the kids, Aaron tricked Gracie and Grant into getting into his car at 5 a.m. and he once again stole them from their mother. And unfortunately, this time it would be months before they would be reunited again.
Well, actually, the night before, he had thought it would be like a fun idea for me and my brother to sleep in sleeping bags in the living room as like a camp out kind of thing. I'm not sure. And so we had slept out in the living room. And that morning he said that we were going to go get my mom donuts and bring them back to the house. And at the time she was still in bed. And that was the last time that I saw her for a very, very long time. We had started driving to go get the donuts, and we ended up driving past the donut shop. And at that moment, I just was freaking out, and I didn't really know what to do, and I was crying, and I was like, why are we not going to get donuts? Like, what are you doing? And then he continued to speed up the car, and my brother attempted to get out of the car. He like almost opened the door, and my dad grabbed his wrist so hard that Grant would still touch it when he was here in like 2020 in counseling. He would still touch that wrist, and almost like my dad like broke it or something. And he kept Grant from getting out of the car, and Grant was screaming, and we were both crying, and we just didn't know what to do. And my dad told us that that was the last time we were gonna see her, and it kind of implied that she was like dead, or that I was just never going to see her again, and I didn't know what to do.
And about a month after her kids were taken from her a second time, her hopes of getting them back were crushed during their divorce hearing. The judge who presided over this case seemed to not believe anything that Angie was saying when it came to her ability to care for her kids. And this was made even worse by the fact that Angie's own father and sister testified against her. Now, she did not have a good relationship with them. She was not close with them. And for two people who, in her mind, barely knew her, to be testifying against their own family member was shocking. It's in her belief that Aaron would do and say anything to make people believe that she was this unstable, untrustworthy person incapable of raising her own children. Meanwhile, Aaron was the one who put a lock on Grant's door so that he couldn't protect his sister. He would literally lock them in their room, allegedly. And there's one more thing about the divorce hearing that I want to share. The same judge who awarded Aaron custody of the kids said that Angie had to undergo a forensic mental health examination. But even after choosing who Angie was evaluated by, he ended up throwing out the entire report. Now, why would he do this, you might ask? Well, she believes that it's because this report would confirm that she was a loving, caring mother who was more than capable of taking care of her two children, who loved her immensely. And that just doesn't go along with Aaron's narrative that she is this unfit mother. But as a result of all of this, Aaron was awarded custody, and this was obviously extremely upsetting to Angie, but also to Grant and Gracie. And if you know anything about custody battles, which is a topic on its own, it is actually very rare statistically for fathers to be granted full custody, especially in cases where the mother does not have some history of mental illness, and Angie does not. So why did this happen in this case? And I can't say for certain, but it makes me wonder, and maybe it'll make you wonder too, if there was something going on behind the scenes, maybe some personal connections that gave Aaron some pull in this case. And again, that's just my opinion. And while in his care, Gracie and Grant said that the abuse only worsened. So as the months went on, it became extremely clear to all of them that their fight for their freedom and for custody for Angie was going to be a very difficult uphill battle for them. It wasn't until February of 2014 that Angie was able to see Gracie and Grant again. And to her, it was clear that based on their physical condition, both children had been deprived of good care. Gracie herself looks like she hadn't slept the entire time that she was away from her mom. And later that year, in November, she confided in her mother that the sexual abuse from her father had never stopped. In fact, in March of 2015, while Gracie was FaceTiming her mom, she showed her the bruising inside her thighs. And according to Aaron, these marks inside of her thighs were rashes from swimming. But neither Grace or Angie say that that's true. And I'll let you draw your own conclusion about that. And if everything that I have shared up until this point hasn't shocked you, sit tight because it gets so much worse. In April of 2015, Aaron had Angie thrown in jail. And she believes that this was to prevent her from talking more about her daughter's abuse. I'm sure you're wondering, how was he able to make this happen? And he did this by making her look like an unfit mother financially.
So when Aaron did take the children from their beds, which was the last time I was mom, I was almost approaching the 10-year anniversary of that. Then he took me to court for what was supposed to be a divorce, and it ended up being an ambush on my character, on my integrity, on my person. I went into that court thinking I was going in to discuss custody arrangements while the divorce was being worked out, but instead the judge told me I would never be a mom again. Well, you got to understand that that's Aaron behind that, telling his attorney what he wants. And that day I wasn't. And after that I wasn't. I fought, scraped and scratched tooth and nail for my children relentlessly, which meant him taking me to court over and over again, some 250 times or more. I continued to be shot down. I went years without seeing my children. I moved to another county in order to get away from the judge here in Davidson County. And when I did, the children revealed more that was happening to them, Gracie sexually and Grant physically and emotionally, both emotionally. And we were able to go to court there in Coffee County. And the doctor didn't show up. So I didn't win. I lost there. My attorney said, you're going to jail now, because I've been threatened so many times by the Philip Smith in circuit court in Davidson County. So what happened was, which ultimately is Aaron having his attorney work that through the judge. So I was a pharmacist there in Coffee County, and my pay one day when it was supposed to come in, it did not, and my check was garnished, and Scott Parsley had taken the entire amount. The next thing they did was file for me to go up in Davidson County Court for failed child support payments. Now, mind you, as a side note, Aaron is a multimillionaire, and they forced me to sign a paper in court that I would not talk about his trust and the disbursements and the multi-millions that he had. So I was paying child support to Aaron, and I wasn't able to pay that child support that month. They took, because my money was gone. So they took me to court. It was the Monday before Easter of 2015. It was my first appearance for anything like any child support, which now I've heard that you get many, many chances to make up child support. Well, I did not. And the judge said, it's not just going to be civil, I'm going to charge you with criminal. And he did, criminal contempt. And then he sentenced me to jail, the Davidson County Jail. On Easter weekend, he told me to report at 10:30 on that following Friday. I could still hear all the attorneys who gather every time we would have court in that courtroom. I could still hear all of them gasp. I turned to my attorney and I said, can you please ask him if I can report later, because I have to do the control inventory for the month at the pharmacy. My attorney asked, and he said, you can report no later than midnight, but if it's 12:01, you're a fugitive of justice. And so I went to jail. And it almost killed me.
So between April of 2015 and 2018, the best course of action for Grant, Gracie, and Angie was to lay low and do what they could to keep Aaron happy. Gracie began therapy, and for a short time there, she had established some boundaries with Aaron. But it was still very clear at this point that Gracie and Grant wanted to be in custody of their mother. So in 2018, their efforts to get there finally picked up steam again. And it started with Angie being able to talk to two friends who encouraged her to go to Grant and Gracie's school and let someone there know what was happening. She tried alerting both the school and the local church about the abuse and also about her concerns that Aaron was grooming young girls from the school on social media. Again, alleged. But nobody, and I mean nobody, took her concerns seriously. The director of campus safety and even the headmaster of Grace Christian Academy wouldn't do anything about these allegations. After several attempts of sharing her concerns, neither the school nor church reported the allegations to DCS or police. And get this, the church's pastor, Steve Berger, was asked to have a meeting with Grant to discuss the abuse, and to this day, he continues to lie about what was said in that meeting. He says that Grant had only spoke to him in that meeting about wanting to be closer to God and never brought up any of the abuse that he was experiencing, his sister was experiencing, and his mother was experiencing. And unfortunately, Grant, as I've alluded to, is not here to tell us in his own words what actually happened in those meetings. But Gracie and his girlfriend, Hannah, know that that is untrue and that Grant was telling him about the abuse. And this is a very common theme for Grant and Gracie. As soon as they would work up the courage to tell someone at school or at church what was happening, they were silenced and just flat out not believed.
First off, I want to say that my school not only silenced me, they invalidated all of my feelings and experiences, and they silenced me in so many ways. But most importantly, the one day my dad had tried to come get me at school for a doctor's appointment, and we did actually have a doctor's appointment. I had no idea that he was coming to get me, and at the time I wasn't speaking to him. And I was sitting in the principal's office because I'd gotten called down there, and I said I was not going to go with him, and I locked myself in that principal's office room and waited for her to come back in. And after she came in, I proceeded to tell her that I was sexually molested and abused, and she then told me to go get in the car with him and go to the doctor, and she can't do anything about it or else she would get in trouble. So that was the main thing that really alarmed me. And after that whole thing happened, when I had like a restraining order in place at one point, they still allowed him to come to games, and I was at that time I was trying to have fun with my friends, and like, for example, like be at football games, and he was there at football games, and I was just so scared that he was there. They would just run every single chance I would have to just like be myself, because he was always there, up in my business, trying to find any way to get close to me or speak with me. They would always tell other people to stay away from me and not to listen to me, and they told me to never talk about it to my friends, when those were the only people I could talk to, because I was not seeing my mom, and obviously I was not going to talk to my dad about it, and I was just trying to speak with my friends about it. And word got out around the school what was going on, and the whole topic of sexual abuse went out in the school, and they called me into the principal's office and told me to not speak about it at all, and they just completely ignored all of the things that I was telling them, and just so they could please my dad and let him do what he wanted to do and still have like full control over me.
Such adult things, and you know, it's not always clear in a child's mind, you know, even if she's dealing with adult things, you know, to us. I've had 3 parents over the weekend that said, my child came to me and asked me, what is sexual abuse? You know, where is this coming from? You know, so a lot of kids are being affected by what she's gone through and what she's telling people, and then they're so young. We're talking about 10 and 11-year-olds, so they don't know what to do with it, and then they go tell somebody else, and then it's like, I just don't want it to become the talk of the school or to grow a life of its own. How do we contain this so that, for her sake, number one, because it isn't just about 6th grade for her. This is, you know what I mean? These are her peers all the way up. And so I don't want something that's going to be detrimental to her, that's going to fall. She's not thinking of the future. She's thinking of right now, but I'm thinking of the future and how this is going to follow her with her peers, And then I also have to think about other students who are now, having to deal with
We were trying to squash that as far as we don't want other students then going and talking to.
So I did ask her.
Other students.
Who have you told? And I didn't say, who have you told that your dad sexually abused? I didn't use that word. I didn't say that in front of her. I just said, who have you talked to about this? From not just a school perspective, but from a mom who's raised daughters, I'm looking at Gracie's next 6 years, not just right now, And the things that are said and opinions that are formed, and all of that is gonna affect her.
Grant first disclosed to me about the abuse with his mom and sister prior to us dating, after we had been friends for a while. I do not believe that he originally said that his father was the perpetrator, but he did share with me that his little sister Gracie had been abused in the past, and his mom had also undergone abuse of some sort, but didn't originally share with me that it was from his dad. I knew that his parents were divorced, and when I came into the picture, they were still in a custody battle and constantly going to court, and he was currently residing with his dad. I started catching hints here and there that Grant and his father didn't have the best relationship. I remember one night I was riding in the car with him, and he just started crying in front of me, and it was the first time I had ever seen him cry. And it was about his dad and how he was scared to go to his dad's house. And I was a little bit confused because I was still new, but he was like, I'm scared to stand up to my father. And he just starts crying. And next thing I know, he calls his dad and tells his dad, I'm not coming home tonight. I'm going to my friend's house. And that was a really big deal for Grant. And he did end up going to his friend's house. But I didn't really know much then what instilled so much fear in Grant. And then as our relationship progressed, I slowly kind of caught on to why Grant didn't really want me to be around his dad. I mean, I would only interact with him a little bit during Grant's baseball or basketball games, but beyond that, he was extremely protective about me talking to his father. But as Grant and I were dating, and I saw, the effects that Grant's dad had on Grant, and, Grant became, very anxious, and his dad held him to a very high standard, and Grant was crumbling under the pressure of it all. And it was really affecting his mental health and bleeding into his schoolwork and baseball and all of that. That was when I started learning more about Gracie and why he was so adamant about and defensive towards his sister. I do remember Grant saying that once he turned 18, he wanted to expose his father for what he did to Grant and Gracie and his mom. Now, Grant really wanted to keep me out of the drama that was occurring in their home life. So I was, whenever I was around, he kind of used that as his escape from reality.
Meanwhile, Angie was not quitting. And at this point, she still didn't have custody of the kids, but anytime that she did have a chance to speak with them, she was reminded of just how scared and miserable that they were in Aaron's care. So in early May of 2018, she had a meeting with Williamson County Sheriff Jeff Long. And in their meeting, she first spoke about her concern over the safety of the students at Grace Chapel Academy based on her allegations that Aaron was grooming young girls. Again, these are allegations. I just have to keep making that abundantly clear. And of course, she also spoke about the abuse that she and her own kids had endured. As a result of these allegations, a forensic interview was scheduled at Child Advocacy Center for Gracie and Grant. And they basically sat down with a social worker and explained exactly what was happening. But even this was dismissed. I mean, they literally spoke in detail about all of the abuse that they had been experiencing, and yet all of it was just dropped by the person that they spoke to. And at this point, Angie is telling everyone and anyone that she can at the school and church who will listen that they needed help, but was continuously told by these men in power that there was nothing they can do. And with nobody helping, Angie said she further fell victim of abuse. In one incident in August of 2018, Gracie and Aaron had driven Grant to a baseball tournament and stopped at a hotel for the night on their way home. But despite asking for her own bed, Aaron only got one for the two of them to share. And that night, after texting her mom and telling her how scared she was, Gracie was molested. Yet even after this horrifying attack, Gracie had the courage to record a video outlining her trauma. There just so happened to be another custody hearing that day, and Gracie hoped that recording this video and playing it for the judge would persuade him to take her out of Aaron's care. But this did not work because, according to Aaron, this never occurred, and the judge just believed him. And not only did the judge just decide not to watch Gracie's video, but they also didn't watch the video that was recording during their interview with the social worker that was taken earlier that year, the video that outlined the abuse that she'd experienced. And so for another 4 weeks, Gracie and Grant lived in fear under their father's care until there was another hearing on September 16th. And get this says a lot. One day after school, Gracie was so scared to be picked up by her father and go home with him that she hid in the principal's office. Obviously, they asked her why she was hiding and why she didn't want to go home. And she literally explained to them exactly why. And instead of doing anything to protect her or calling people that could, they forced her to get in her father's car and go home with him.
Honey, so let's go. Please. I want to ride with Mom.
All right, so then after the party, you go with me and Grant to Mississippi?
I don't want to go to Mississippi, please. I just want to.
Okay, Gracie, you're coming to me eventually. Because you guys are breaking the rules. I'm not. You two are breaking the rules. I'm not.
Is that what you think this is?
No, I know what it is. I understand. But at some point, we're supposed to be following rules that aren't being followed. And there's reasons for the rules. And it doesn't matter what us three think. And we've had this conversation a number of times, but it's going to stop. Gracie will be coming to me at some point. Whether you like it or not, it will happen. Because I'm not going to continue to allow us to be breaking the rules. And you shouldn't be allowing it either. And you shouldn't be allowing it either. It's not just about what you want right now. It's much bigger than that. And I've tried to play nice and be nice about it, but you've been with Mom way more than you're supposed to, and way more than what the judge said.
There shouldn't be
It doesn't matter what you think right now.
Now, as far as that custody hearing on September 16th, the judge finally agreed to watch that video from the forensic interview. However, he did not watch it in its entirety. It was initially ruled that now Angie would have custody, finally. And for them, for a short time, it felt like things were turning a corner. But later, the judge went back on his ruling and said that Gracie could stay with her mom, but that Grant was a big boy, who could take care of himself. And what makes that so upsetting is, from what I understand, allegedly, Aaron was still doing everything he could to control Grant. For one, Grant had worked so hard to be the best baseball player he could be, and he applied to a bunch of different schools and was very excited to have, hopefully, his choice because he also excelled academically. But Aaron hid his college acceptance letters from him. He literally would say that he wasn't going to let Grant go anywhere but Harvard. Talk about pressure. Meanwhile, obviously, getting into Harvard is very exciting, but Grant wanted to stay close to his sister and his mom because they meant everything to him. So obviously, he was super confused when he wasn't getting acceptance letters back from any other colleges. Grant really felt that he didn't have a say in his future, which is something that no one should have to experience. So jumping forward to February of 2019, Angie decides to take another crack at pursuing legal action against Aaron. Because even though Gracie was now in her care and doing better, Grant was not. But even after trying to prove that she should be the person with sole custody of both kids, the judge not only dismissed the case, but she also barred Angie from filing any motions against Aaron for 6 years when Gracie turned 18. And she literally called Angie an abusive litigant, which means that she abused the legal system for her own benefit. Oh, and remember Steve Berger, the pastor who lied about speaking with Grant about the abuse? The one who said they only got together to speak about Grant's relationship with God? Turns out he also has close ties to this judge. So make of that what you will. If it isn't already clear, in my opinion, the Good Old Boys Club was hard at work. And by this point, I have summarized 2 decades of trauma that this family has endured. And I have focused mainly on Angie and Gracie, as their stories are very important to tell, just as important as Grant's, but we haven't even gotten into the suspicious death of Grant Solomon. I'm hoping that by sharing this, more people will be made aware of what happened to Grant, and there will be a greater chance of his case being properly looked into and possibly getting justice for Grant. So in 2020, Grant was 18 years old and still pursuing baseball full time. But being 18, as much as you may think so, was not something that Grant was looking forward to, because according to Angie, Grant was terrified about becoming an adult. And this was mainly because he felt that he missed out on a lot of his childhood because he was forced to live with Aaron and forced to go through years of abuse and control. In many ways, he lost his childhood and had to constantly be in fear that he would have to step in and protect his sister. But the one upside to turning 18 is that he was hoping to take Aaron to court and finally get full custody himself of Gracie, because she was still underage, and him getting full custody would protect her from Aaron's abuse. And the fact that Grant was starting to move forward with legal procedure to get custody of her is a huge reason why it's believed by many that his life was taken from him on July 20th, 2020. So that day, he and his father, Aaron, took separate cars to a baseball training facility called Ward Performance Institute, which is located in Gallatin, Tennessee, and they arrived just before 9 a.m. Now, Grant desperately did not want to go in for training that morning. Like I mentioned, this was 2020, and Grant had just gotten over COVID, and it was really hard on his body, and his lungs were still recovering. He felt like this could negatively impact his health. He felt like his lungs were not ready and recovered enough to get back into baseball. And like I mentioned earlier, Grant had an incredibly intuitive nature about him, and he seemed to sense that things were going to happen. And I cannot make this up, but that same morning as he was leaving his mom's house to go to training, he told her that he, quote, didn't want to die in Gallatin today. Angie was very frightened hearing this, and she thought it was because of the condition of his lungs from recovering from COVID. She never could have imagined what actually would happen that day. Obviously, Grant couldn't have known exactly what was going to happen, but clearly he had a really bad feeling. But he went to training anyway because he was being pressured by his father, and Truly, he felt like he had no other choice. Now, according to Aaron's own statement, one of them at least, he says that when they got there, the two of them parked in their separate cars in the lot, which is located on a bit of a hill. And after parking, Grant proceeded to exit his truck. Aaron claims to have seen Grant walk towards the back of his truck where his baseball equipment was. But then he claims he looked away briefly to check a work email. He looked up and he saw that Grant's truck was no longer parked next to his car. And then he noticed that Grant's truck had rolled backwards down the hill into a ditch. And when he went over to the truck to see what happened, he noticed that his son was now trapped underneath it. This is when he places this 911 call that I am about to play for you. And I want to hear your thoughts on it. But in my opinion, it is missing serious concern that any parent would have for their child in this situation.
I'm trying.
Where's your emergency?
It's 1357 South Water Street. It's off 109. Please hurry.
You said 57?
Please hurry.
Okay, what's going on?
1357. My son's truck backed over him, and it's rolled over him and drug him into the ditch, and it's on top of him. He's trapped under the truck, and somehow it drug him underneath it. Yes, my son is under it. I'm trying to call 911. My name is Aaron Solomon.
And you said
Oh my God.
1357 South Water Avenue, right?
Yes.
How old
yes.
is the male?
He's 18. He just turned 18 a couple weeks, about a month ago. Oh my God, this is not good.
Is he awake and
Oh, please
talking to
hurry.
you?
I don't think so. He's not alert, right? No, he's out and he's trapped. I got 3 guys here and he's trapped under the truck.
I understand, sir. Stay on the phone with me while we get somebody out there. What's your name?
Aaron Solomon.
What kind of vehicle is it?
It's a Toyota Tacoma, and the vehicle he's underneath the vehicle.
Okay, I've
And
got that.
that's my son. It's somehow backed up. Yeah. I'm on with 911 right now. Oh my God.
Was your son working on it?
No, he was just getting out of it. We're on an incline, and I guess he didn't have it in park or something, or it wasn't engaged, or oh my God, I can't believe
Still not
this.
responding,
No.
and he's still
No.
under truck. No one can get
Yes.
out from under it.
No,
We've got units en route to you. I'm just asking you questions for we can
Huh?
update them, okay?
Somebody's telling me that he's coming too.
Okay,
Maybe.
he is waking up,
Maybe.
kind of keeping still. So he is
Well, he
breathing.
can't move. I don't think he can move. I don't know.
Okay, I understand.
No, he can't move. He's trapped.
Okay, we got somebody en route. Now, when he wakes
I-
up, he might
I'm
be
telling him,
scared.
man.
Can somebody just
I'm
get
telling
down
him.
there and talk to him?
Yeah, somebody talked to him. There's blood. Is he facing up or down? He's facing up. They said he may aspirate. We need to hurry.
So does he have blood coming out of his mouth?
Yeah, there's blood coming out. Yeah, somehow it drug him down, I think. I don't know whether it wasn't in park or what, or if it didn't engage the brake, or it drug him underneath somehow.
Okay.
They said he's facing up,
Okay.
but he's bleeding from his mouth. So, Grant, turn your face to the side if you can, barely, but be careful.
Don't move him, okay?
We can't move him. Oh my God.
All right, Deason, they're there. I'm going to let you go, okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Here are some strange things about this call if you didn't catch them yourself. Aaron doesn't mention going down to check on his son, and even confirms later that he never went down into the ditch after the incident. He also mentioned something about there being witnesses to all this. But guess what? That's not true. At least not that can be corroborated. When emergency responders got there, they did their best to try and free Grant and save him. Unfortunately, it was too late, and Grant had horrible blunt force trauma to his head. They ended up finding a laceration on the back of his head and also a skull fracture. And later on, doctors found bruising to his jaw, left hip, and right thigh. This head wound, which according to Aaron's story would have had to have happened after hitting his head on the parking lot concrete before being dragged backwards into the ditch, was fatal. And after being rushed to the emergency room,
Unwrap good vibes with Brazilian-inspired beauty from Sal de Janeiro.
Grant Solomon was pronounced dead at 9:28 a.m. Now, I just said that his head wound was fatal, but that's not even what doctors wrote down as his cause of death. But cardiac arrest was listed as his actual cause of death. And then when Angie arrived to the hospital, Aaron, according to her, said something really weird. He told her that they would be a family now. Aaron gave a statement and declined an autopsy. Big red flag here, people. He didn't want an autopsy or any sort of post-mortem examination. And with that, the case was closed. Now, if his desire to get this case closed seemingly as quick as possible doesn't make you concerned, well, this probably will. After Grant was pronounced dead, Aaron allegedly said that his son's organs could still be donated as late as 9 p.m. that night without ventilation. This makes me curious if there was something in the autopsy that he did not want people to know about. And I am here today because, in my opinion, the cause of this fatal head wound did not occur when Aaron said it did. For starters, the very premise of Aaron's story is that he and Grant were going to a baseball training facility for practice that morning. However, after speaking to the person that runs the facility, it became clear that neither Aaron or Grant had an appointment that day. And even if we ignore that, which we shouldn't, Aaron claimed Grant got out of his truck to grab his equipment from the trunk of his car. But Grant never kept equipment there. He always kept it in the truck, in the back seat. But not only that, and this is extremely weird, one of Grant's baseball bats was missing from the truck. He always had several in his truck, and to this day, it still hasn't been found. As I will explain later, and as many of you just know from common sense, it is absolutely crucial that a crime scene reconstruction is done in this situation. It goes without saying that this would be a very critical piece to the puzzle that absolutely needs to be done, and it's something that Gracie and Angie want done desperately. And even for Aaron's sake, I mean, if what he said happened really happened the way he said it did, why wouldn't he want that done to clear his name and clear any doubts in anyone's mind? It is very confusing and suspicious, in my opinion, that he seems so adamant that the case is not re-examined. But the reality is, the story that Aaron is telling, the stories, I should say, do not match up with what the crime scene tells us. At least not based on the information that I have learned and what I will share with you now. For starters, for his story to be true, Grant would have had to been overtaken by his truck while he was still standing in the parking lot. And based on where Aaron said his car was parked, there was about 60 feet from that spot to where it ended up in the ditch. That would indicate that his head wound was also sustained in the parking lot. But where was the blood? Not in the parking lot. Nope, it was only found on the rocks right where his body was found under the truck. Oh, and the inside of the truck too. Reports say that there was blood inside Grant's truck. How is that even possible if we believe Aaron's story that he was killed outside of the car? Now, I don't know exactly how much blood was found, but I think any blood being found is worth an investigation. And then we have data from the Life 360 app on Grant's phone that indicated that he was never even at the top of the parking lot. Now, I don't know how accurate the Life 360 data is, but I thought this was worth mentioning. His phone only pinged at the bottom of the lot near where his body was found. But the biggest thing here, in my opinion, is that the wounds on his body don't even indicate that he was dragged 60 feet through concrete into a rocky ditch. He didn't have any scrapes on his body, no scuff marks, nothing that would validate Aaron's story. Even his glasses, which he always wore, were found on the sidewalk side of the ditch, not in the parking lot where they would have fallen off if he was trampled and dragged by his car. His shoes weren't even the slightest bit scuffed. Tell me, please tell me how that is even remotely possible. The tire marks from the truck also suggest that the car didn't roll backwards into the ditch, but rather drove into it from the roadside. And these are just things that should not be ignored. That is, unless you are the Gallatin Police Department, in which case, yes, you definitely ignored all this. They ignored crucial evidence that could possibly prove that this was a crime scene and not the scene of a tragic incident. In fact, the attorney general even said that the parking lot was a crime scene. So why didn't they treat it that way? Also, Grant's hat, glasses, and phone were all just left on the sidewalk and not considered pieces of evidence. And get this, the black box inside of Grant's truck, Gallatin police didn't even ask for it. If this was some tragic car accident that had to do with some terrible malfunction, then why wouldn't they confirm that beyond a reasonable doubt? And one of the biggest discrepancies here has to do with Grant's phone. His phone, which was reportedly seen at the crime scene, just seemed to disappear. And additional Life 360 data shows that someone had Grant's phone the entire day that he died, and it wasn't returned to Angie until later that night. During that day, it was gone. And when she got it back, the phone was completely destroyed. And if that doesn't scream suspicious to you, I don't know what does. But despite all of this, Aaron was only questioned for a few minutes at the scene. It didn't seem like there was any doubt that he was telling the truth. But of course, if they had properly invested Grant's death, then I wouldn't be here today telling you about this injustice. And to this day, as you can imagine, the suspicious death of Grant Solomon has continued to haunt Angie and Gracie and all those who loved him, his girlfriend Hannah. This was such a massive loss. And to not have answers and have all these suspicions about what actually happened, as you can imagine, takes such a toll on them. And because it was clear that his death was not going to be further investigated, Angie took matters into her own hands and recorded Aaron as he gave her yet another explanation of what happened to Grant. And obviously the hope here is that she can catch him in a lie, or at least have his version of events on camera in case he changes them again.
And
Where were the rocks?
All right, so this is actually a decent example of how. So WPI is up here. Then the parking lot is kind of like this.
Yeah.
And then at the edge of the parking lot, it's just like this, a ditch that's steeper than this, down. And then it goes back up. And so down in here is those rocks.
Okay.
On a little bit of both sides. And then
Okay.
here's 109. So what had happened is the truck actually comes down this, and you can see, I think the bumper got damaged probably when it
ducked.
like there.
Yeah,
Yes,
that
but
makes sense.
with the force was so much, the truck, when it settled, was actually, the front was kind of against that side of the ditch, and the back end was actually stuck up on almost the shoulder of 109. So
that's why the front end was tilted a little bit back down,
yes.
and that's why,
Yes, the
and that's
truck-
what was laying on him.
Yes. So the heavy part of the truck is on his end. Also, it's extremely unstable. That's as soon as they hopped out, they had stabilization things for the back and jacks for the front, so they could jack it up without it rolling forward on top of him more. Was about to get out.
So when you saw him last, where was he standing?
All right. So I'm in my car. I'm right here, like
You're
literally
parked here, on
Yeah,
on this side
yes,
of him.
I'm right here.
Uh-huh.
I look over first when we first pull up, and he's looking at his phone and wrapping something up, and then I'm checking to make sure work emails that are coming in aren't something I need to address. My car is still running with air conditioner on, so I can't hear if his is on or off. But so I look down, then I look back up, and I see him because we were early. I mean, we had like plenty of time, so there was no rush. We had our time. So the last I see is him literally like right here closing this, about to open this, and I'm thinking, oh, he's just going to get his gear, and I'm going to check this email to make sure it's not important, and then I'm going to get out and we're going to go in.
Did he have his ball cap on then and everything?
Yeah, had his hat on, had his glasses on, because
And that's the
He
last
had
you
his
saw
glasses.
him was right
Yeah,
there.
yes.
And the truck wasn't rolling at that
No,
point, because you
well,
would have noticed it.
Right. So here's the thing. I don't know whether he got this and it started rolling and he tried to stop it and got knocked down, or if he was in here and then it knocked him down and knocked him out and maybe the door dropped. I don't know.
But when he
you
was
know?
laying there, he was on his back.
Yes. Face up, chest up.
Now, there's almost an hour of this footage, but he goes into detail about the position that Grant's body was found in. He's telling Angie that Grant was under the passenger side of the car, But the police report and even photos from the scene indicate that he was under the driver's side. And something else that jumped out to me is when Aaron said that he tried to see if the car would, quote, pop out of park and flip into another gear on its own. Well, guess what? And anyone that knows anything about cars knows that it doesn't. And it also doesn't spontaneously move backwards because that's not what cars do.
Right. Well, hold on. Good job.
What's that?
Well, I just tried to see if I could even put it in park where it's over where it shifts, and it won't even stay there. It automatically goes over here. So
Okay.
I don't know. It's just so freaky.
Wait, you did
because
what?
none of it makes sense. No, I was trying to see how park it goes in there. I was trying to see, like you were saying, would it pop out of
It
park?
can't because it has to go over to the column.
Right. So it won't stay there. It won't stay right there to possibly pop down to
No.
reverse.
God
I mean, there's
dang,
just,
what happened?
I don't know. None of it makes sense. And because I didn't see the whole thing, I mean, nobody knows except God.
Is his
you
cooler
know?
in here that I packed him?
Yeah.
And for as puzzled as he seemed about the car's mechanical issues, Aaron refused to have the truck examined. And again, that makes me wonder if he wants to have all of these doubts and allegations put to rest, why would he not want the car to be examined? Anyway, Grant's memorial was held on July 25th, and I cannot imagine how painful this must have been for those who loved him. Not only was Grant gone, but the circumstances surrounding his death were anything but clear.
I know you aren't here with us right now, but I have faith that you will see this in some form. Thank you for being the best friend that anyone could ever ask for. I remember just a few days ago, I went out with you because you had just started doing DoorDash. You were so excited to start doing it, and it made me happy to see that smile on your face. I know that we had planned possibly in the future to get an apartment in Nashville together and even somehow start a business someday. Even though we can't do that now, I'm comforted by the fact that you're probably playing a game of catch with Jesus right now. I will never forget our jams to Pop Smoke in the car, and I certainly won't forget our late night milkshake runs at the gas station. Cookies and cream was always the best. I especially loved all of our deep conversations. You were one of the few people that I knew would drop everything if I needed to talk about something. Thank you for being right there next to me when I was going through a rough time in my life.
To my dear friend and second baseman, Grant, there's been nothing that brings me more joy than getting to be a part of your story in this life. Although your journey has come to an end here on this earth, you have somehow continued to inspire so many people to treat others as Christ would. During this past week, I cannot even begin to describe how much this group of guys has talked, laughed, cried, questioned, and mourned this whole thing. I miss you more than I know how to express. We all do. I want you to know that playing baseball will never be the same. I miss your friendship and your brotherhood so much. During your time here, you touched so many people and loved everyone so well.
My experience losing Grant still is the worst thing that ever happened. Before Grant left that morning, he stopped in the door and said something that was so out of character. But he said, "Mom, I don't want to die in Gallatin today." So I begged and pleaded not to go, or I would go with him. Let me sit in the parking lot. I thought he was talking about his lungs from where he had COVID. He was getting over it. We were having to have x-rays and see doctors. I didn't want to be a helicopter mom, but I just thought it might just be there. He said, "No, Mom, you're not going." And an hour later, I got a phone call that Grant was dead in Gallatin. And I still don't know what to do without him. I know Grant was being a hero, and he saved his sister. I know that, but he didn't have to be a hero. I miss him so much. I miss him every second of every day. It's not grief, it's absence, it's silence. It's wanting to tell him something and I can't, or ask him questions because he's so wise and I can't. It's wanting him to be there to see Gracie run track, or to have him be with her, to give her advice are just 2-arm hugs. Mrs. 2-arm hugs. And then they just wiped him off the face of the earth like he meant nothing. Within an hour, it was just, Grant's not expendable. You know, the way I feel today about that, about him 3 years later, it will never change. I will carry it till I see him again one day.
Grant was my best friend. He was my protector, and when he left to go be with God, I didn't really have that protection anymore. I didn't have the person who would always take me to go work out and we'd work out together. I didn't have that person to go sit in his room on the corner of his bed while he was playing video games and just talk with him. I wasn't able to have those hugs anymore. I lost every single thing about him, and that was the hardest time and day of my life. I miss him so much every day. I lost a part of me that day, that morning when he died, and it's like unthinkable that you see this happen all the time to other people, but then it happened to you, and I can't really put it into words how losing him has made me feel and how it's affected me and how it will always affect me for the rest of my life. But he was just such a good person, and he didn't deserve the way to go the way he did at all. That part hurts so much to think about too, is how he left this earth, and just the fact that I never get to speak to him for a very, very long time until I go to heaven really hurts. Ultimately, I just want my best friend back, but I will never wish that upon him because he's in such a good place now and he's not suffering anymore.
I don't really know how to put my experience losing Grant into words, to be honest. Detrimental. Heartbreaking, to say the least. It was probably the most pivotal experience of my life, and it's still extremely hard almost 3 years later. No one should have to undergo losing a loved one who had so much more life to live, especially in this case. It just really makes you wake up and realize that someone that you love so deeply could be taken away from you in a blink of an eye. We were with each other like the night before, and we even fell asleep on FaceTime, and I wake up to my dad telling me that Grant had been in an accident. And at the point, we didn't know if he was okay or not. And I checked my phone, and I don't have a single good morning text or anything like he usually sends me. And I knew he had an appointment early that morning in Gallatin, which was an hour away. So we were waiting to hear from Angie what hospital he was at. And in the midst of panic, I insisted that I took my own car even so that he could ride home with me. Because in that moment, your mind just doesn't automatically go to the worst case scenario. When I arrive to the hospital, I see Angie and Gracie walking towards me and just complete utter shock. And I remember Angie just collapsing in my arms and saying, "He's gone." So I go to the waiting room, and I'm throwing chairs, I'm screaming, I'm crying, and I look over and I see his dad, and just with no emotion on his face. And at the time, like, I didn't really think much about it in the midst of all the chaos. And I go into the hospital room, and he looked like he was asleep, and he looked fine, and I was just praying to God that he would wake up. And yeah, July 20th, 2020 forever changed my life. And my hope for participating in this video is to prevent another tragedy like this from happening.
And because the law didn't seem to be on their side once again, Angie has tried to take matters into her own hands. Less than a month after Grant's death, she hired a private investigator. The PI has helped her gain access to what, if anything, was done to further look into Grant's death and the circumstances surrounding it. They were able to access the incident report, the police crash report, and the medical examination report, and some other things. And based on all the information gathered, Angie, Grace, and Grant's girlfriend Hannah, and all their supporters now strongly believe that Grant did not die the way that Aaron said he did. And again, just days before he passed, Grant was telling people that he was afraid of his father. And whether you believe that this was no accident, or maybe you just have questions and need more information to make a determination for yourself, I think we can all agree that Grant's death needs to be properly investigated. For as many inconsistencies as there are in Aaron's story, and with the fact that the crime scene doesn't match any of these stories, there is no reason that the Gallatin Police Department should have closed this. Now, Aaron maintains his innocence despite this evidence, but like I keep saying, if you want to clear your name and remove all
Minor symptom. Hit up ADHD online. Bam. Specifically this one.
remove all this doubt, clear the allegations, why not have this investigated? If what you said happened, why are you afraid of investigation? Since Grant's death, Angie, Gracie, and a team of friends and community members have come together in an attempt to get the justice that they deserve, not just for Grant's murder, but for Angie and Gracie as well. However, like I said before, Angie and Gracie continually are shot down at the legal level. In September of 2020, Gracie tried to get a restraining order against Aaron, but was denied. And according to her, Aaron even told Gracie that he was enforcing time with him, whether she wanted to or not. Also, in October of 2020, Angie had a friend of hers file a motion in juvenile court on behalf of Gracie. And Angie wasn't able to do this herself because she was banned from filing motions against Aaron for 6 years. And this motion outlined everything that Gracie had experienced, from the sexual abuse to the neglect. But even with a friend filing this, the court said that it lacked merit and shut the entire thing down. It is in their belief that Aaron is using his connections to sway people in his favor. And when I say people, I mean lawyers, judges, and even the governor of Tennessee, who Aaron supposedly sat next to in church all the time. Now, as for Grant's truck, there is more I can share. After Aaron refused for the truck to be examined, he let it sit in his driveway for a year before he eventually sold it to a scrapyard. And guess what else he did? He reported that the truck had been totaled and collected an insurance payout on it. But here's the thing. Angie was smart, and she ended up tracking down Grant's truck and purchasing it in April of 2021. And the car wasn't totaled. With the help of her PI, Angie was able to determine that Aaron had committed insurance fraud. Now, it has been said that this fraud could be looked into at the federal level, so if nothing else against Aaron sticks, then maybe this will. But let me go back to the truck because there was some interesting data there. And even though it had been over a year since everything happened, she still had a forensic analysis performed on it. And this is all wildly technical, especially for me. We all know I don't know much about cars, so I'm just going to summarize what the findings were. After 2 full examinations were performed on the truck, it was ultimately determined that there were no mechanical issues that would have caused the car to spontaneously roll backwards. There was literally nothing to suggest why Grant's truck would have backed over him, assuming he put the car in park when he got there. Now, Aaron has said that he must not have put his car in park. But here's the thing about that. The car was found in park when first responders arrived. So unless he got in there himself to put the car in park, this theory doesn't make sense. But even despite all of these findings, nothing has been done to determine if Grant actually died the way that Aaron said he did. And this means that Gracie is still at risk of ending up in Aaron's care, or at the very least, still being forced to spend time with him. And with that fear, she decided to go public with a video titled Gracie's Story, A Cry for Help, which is on YouTube and you can watch it yourself. I will link it below. This video was the first time that she spoke publicly about the abuse that she endured at the hands of Aaron, and she shared how truly terrified of this man she is. And her bravery and courage is a huge part of the reason that I was able to find her family and work with them to tell their story. Now, unfortunately, this video received backlash from the court, and it resulted in Gracie being forced into DCS custody for about 6 months. All she wanted to do was to live with her mom, live without fear, get justice for her brother, and an order of protection against Aaron. But even after 2 years, she is still fighting that battle. Luckily, she is able to do that in her mother's custody, but she still has fear that Aaron is out there and could retaliate against them at any time. And that's where Freedom for Gracie comes in. Freedom for Gracie is a website and a movement created by friends, parents, teachers, and neighbors who are seeking justice for this family. The goal has been to raise awareness regarding the emotional, physical, and sexual abuse of Gracie, Grant, and Angie at the hands of Aaron Solomon. Just recently, it was shared on the Freedom for Gracie Instagram page that claims of sexual abuse against Aaron have been substantiated. A Tennessee children's case recording states that Gracie's case is being classified as abuse substantiated, perpetrator substantiated. The 5-year span that Gracie and Grant were solely in Aaron's custody is the exact 5-year span that the report said he was found to have sexually abused Gracie. Now, keep in mind, when Angie was trying to tell the courts that Gracie was in danger, they said her claims, quote, lacked merit. So my coverage of their story is not only to raise awareness about Grant's very suspicious death, but also to share Gracie and Angie's story and get the justice that all three of them deserve. However, as you can imagine, as the social media effort has picked up and more people are hearing this family's story, there has been major backlash from Aaron. In March of 2022, he filed a defamation lawsuit against Angie, saying that what she is doing is a smear campaign on his reputation. He says the posts and videos about him are inaccurate, including the idea that he attempted to kill Angie before their divorce. He denies killing his son, denies molesting his daughter, denies being fired from his job, and much more. And obviously, it's because of this lawsuit and all of his connections to people in power that anyone covering this case, including myself, have to be extremely careful. And I consulted with a lawyer before I recorded this episode to make sure that my wording puts me in the best possible position to defend myself if I need to. I'm not going to lie, covering this case was a little scary for me, but I did not want that fear to stop me because this family needs help. They need justice. They need protection, and they need support from people like you. Angie and Gracie have expressed that they are still scared of what Aaron is capable of, and unless they have the resources to go after him from many angles, it's possible that this will never stop. I mentioned previously that a crime scene reconstruction must be performed. That is absolutely crucial. Considering that Grant's wounds were not consistent with being dragged 60 plus feet down a concrete hill into a ditch, it should be a bare minimum that a reconstruction of events is performed. They also need to hire people outside of Nashville to look into this further and look into Aaron's story of what happened. Just like we saw with the Murdaugh case, the Good Old Boys Club is a real thing, and that is going on, in my opinion, here. And the only way to tackle it is to bring in people from the outside who have no stake in the game to give this a second look. And in addition to investigating Grant's suspicious death and coming after Aaron from that angle, Gracie has so bravely decided to take him to court on charges of sexual abuse. And I am so proud of her for doing that because it's not easy. It is scary. At just 16 years old, she has hired her own lawyer and is going after her own father, which is something that no 16-year-old should have to do. But I am damn proud of her for doing it. But this is where they need your help as an active true crime viewer to take steps to help them achieve their goals. And the main thing that they need here is money. Money is just what it takes to make this stuff happen. Angie and her lawyers have created a nonprofit called Grant's Army, and it's a tax-deductible organization where donations can be made to help them achieve justice and freedom. All donations made, big and small, to their GoFundMe will be filtered through this nonprofit, and those resources will be used for lawyer fees, crime scene reconstruction efforts, and more. I mean, they are going up against a system where bad guys protect bad guys. That is the bottom line. They're going to need to hire the best of the best to even attempt to take him down. And quite frankly, the more resources they have, the more people they are able to get involved and help them find justice. Now, like I said, if you are not in the position to donate, which I completely understand, there are other ways to help that are free. There are several social media pages that you can follow to keep up with their story, and even a petition that needs signing. I'm going to have a link tree posted in the description of this video, and by clicking that link, you will be directed to a variety of ways that you can get involved, and I highly encourage you to do so. Some of these things will take you seconds. It includes a link to a petition asking for Grant's case to be reopened and investigated, a link to Angie's social media, a link to the GoFundMe, and more. Maybe there's someone else.
He has caused so much pain for my family. My name is Gracie Solomon. I'm 14 years old and I'm here to tell my story. I just want to say before we get into any of this that it's coming straight from me. It's all me and no one else is telling me what to do. My brother died protecting me from my father, Aaron Solomon. My father's a monster. It makes me want to vomit. I've been minimalized, but now I've found my voice to be able to tell you that my father raped me, hurt me, and I'm not going to be a victim of this monster. He's a rapist, he's a molester, he's a liar, and he's a killer. I hate my dad. I'm absolutely terrified of him for everything he has done to me, my brother, and my mom. I don't want to call him my dad anymore. He's never listened to me. He has hurt me sexually, physically, and mentally. He has caused so much pain for my family. He has tried to manipulate me and has manipulated others, and it has worked. Ever since I was born, my dad has done awful things to me. First, he never let my mom bathe me. It was always him. So by not letting my mom come in at all, it meant that he could do anything to me. I would always tell my mom I felt like I was more like a wife to him instead of his daughter. He would always bring his phone into the bathroom with him. At the time, I didn't know it, but I strongly believe he was taking pictures and videos. I had to learn to hide my body from him by flipping my hair over because he wouldn't leave me alone while I was showering or getting out. He would make excuses like me needing a towel or my hair was hard for me to wash on my own. So he would be able to help me. He is a sick person. After showering, he would sit me down in his lap with only a towel to brush my hair. He brushed through my hair so aggressively I would sometimes cry. I had terrible scars from that, and they are still somewhat visible. I even remember taking a bath as a young kid, probably first grade, and him washing me with the Dove bar soap completely up and inside of my privates. I know now that it was probably his hand, but I was too young to know any better. All of my grandparents knew about the abuse and still supported him. When I was at his house at night, I would sometimes feel like I couldn't control my body, or I would get sleepy and wake up in my dad's bed. One night, I woke up with rashes on my inner thighs, both, and my privates also burned frequently. One of Grant's friends remembers looking over the upstairs railing and seeing my head slung over, and Dad wrapping me in his lap. Sorry. Every night, my dad would lock his bedroom door. Sometimes I was sick or crying, most of the time probably missing my mom so much, and I would bang on his door and scream for him. He never answered. While I lived with him in 4th grade, I practically broke my back by falling and hitting the edge of a concrete culvert and big rocks. It was almost impossible to walk for a while. He didn't care enough to even take me to the doctors. I have records now of how bad my back was injured 3 years later from the incident. In the car, if we said something that made him mad, he would speed up really fast, and it would scare me and Grant. Dad is super manipulative and has manipulated so many people. He even tries to convince me that I am being brainwashed by my mom and everything I remember never happened. He tries to scare me into thinking my mom's house is unsafe. He knows how scared I am of robberies and kidnapping or getting taken from my mom. In fact, he took me away from my mom for years when I was just ending my kindergarten year. Later on, he told me that I was never going back to my mom and that she was actually dead. I don't remember when I found out that she was alive, but I know Grant and I both believe she was dead for years because of him. One time at my grandparents' house, my dad's parents, I remember hearing my grandpa say to Grant that he wanted to kill my mom. It made Grant so mad he started throwing stuff in the room. And I was so hurt and started crying. After I was finally able to start seeing Mom again, my dad got mad because we didn't want to leave her. When the cops showed up, they told Grant and I that we had to leave in the cop car and Mom couldn't be the one to take us. They said my dad specifically asked for us to be taken in the cop car so we would learn to not disobey him again. My mom filed for an emergency court hearing to get us back. We were in North Carolina for one of Grant's baseball tournaments when my dad said we had to go back home for court. It was only my dad and I. Grant stayed. We stopped at a hotel room in Asheville. My dad only got one bed when I had asked for two. It made me really nervous before we even got in the hotel room. When we went to bed, I remember him slowly getting closer to me until I was on the edge of the bed. I kept waking up by feeling his feet rub against mine. I kept waking up and then finally realized I felt something hard on my lower back, close to my butt. I drew an illustration of what it was like. I felt really scared and knew it was wrong. At court, Dad's attorney got inches away from my face and tried to manipulate me into thinking what my dad did to me didn't really happen by saying, "Do you really think your dad would do something like that? Do you actually remember that happening?" He was so close to me that I could smell his cigarette breath, and his tone really scared me. When I learned I had to go back to North Carolina with my dad, I was completely broken and didn't want to stop hugging my mom. He told my dad to pull me off of her and leave because he could. I eventually was able to go to family therapy, sometimes with my dad and Grant. One time I told Grant he could leave the room because he would always be there for me. I told him I was terrified of him being at my school and trying to get me. He got so mad. He reached to throw a chair at me, but ended up storming out of the room. He was screaming and his face was blood red. My counselor tried to calm him down. Through therapy, I have set boundaries with my dad so that I would feel better. Over the past couple of years, he has respected my boundaries, surprisingly. Now, ever since Grant passed, he ignores everything I have said. He is trying to force me to come live with him this Sunday. I am so terrified of him. I'm so scared. I can't go in general or without Grant. I'm not going. I begged him in counseling to never do this, and he promised me he would never try to take me again. He is a liar. I'm so scared of Dad. I've seen him do terrible things to people I love and myself. Because of this, I strongly believe he killed Grant, and now he's going to kill me. Grant and my dad never had a good father-son relationship because of my dad. Dad would always harm, threaten, scare, and stress Grant out so badly. Before my dad took us from my mom, Grant and I were scared of Dad because of his ridiculous and terrifying behavior. From trying to kill my mom and constantly yelling at her, to freaking us out from all the things he has done to us and our mom. When he took us, he was just as mean and hurtful as he is now. One of the things Grant said when Dad tried to kill her was, "When I'm 6'4", you will not be able to do this anymore." I have always thought about that so much. Grant meant that, and he was scared and so hurt by his dad. That is just awful, and Grant was so young. Dad is controlling in many ways. One way was by giving Indian sunburns and telling him that he would always have control over Grant. Dad would just scream at Grant, like I could hear it from everywhere in the house. It was awful. One time Grant and I were watching TV together, and all of a sudden Dad comes up and grabs Grant by his shirt, pulls him up, and just yells at him in his face. It was so bad to watch. Dad would get into Grant's head so much. He would limit food and call him fat, criticize him just to the point where Grant would feel so awful. Dad would limit the time Grant had in the bathroom, on his phone, etc. Why the bathroom? Dad would keep our phones in his bathroom, which is locked, in his bedroom that is also locked. Dad never wanted Grant to be around Hannah, his girlfriend, or any of his friends. My dad even kept college letters and threw away some of the ones he didn't like. One of those multiple could have been what Grant wanted. Dad only wanted him to go to Ivy League schools. Dad also used Grant's truck as a way to control him too. Grant was so scared of him. He would apologize so much that if he did anything wrong, like if he was late to hit or if he was too sick, he was scared Dad would get mad. Even if he missed a day of school, the whole rest of the time he was worried about Dad. The day my dad took us, Grant tried to get out of the car to jump out to get back to Mom. When he tried, Dad grabbed Grant's wrist so tight, Grant thought it broke. And recently still, I would notice Grant touching that same wrist. Grant had a plan to run away with me, so we did. We got a few things together and went to our mom's house. Dad is and was an awful dad to Grant. I would never want Grant to even have to know somebody like him, and I'm happy for Grant, because he will never have to deal with him ever again. Dad would take any or all of his anger out on Grant, anger outburst. He made Grant train all the time and never had a break, and visit lots of schools. Dad would stalk Grant and come to every single practice, training, tryouts, just literally about anything. Grant was even scared enough to open up to Pastor Steve about help for our family, Grant, Mom, and I. Pastor Steve and Dad lied and said Grant wanted to talk about his faith and strengthening his faith. That was said during the funeral, even though Mom and I have always known he went for help because he told us. Grant was my protector and my mom's. I didn't realize how much he protected us. However, now that he's gone, my dad is attacking me again. One of Grant's great friends told me that Grant had plans to reopen and testify for me and him again in court as an adult. A month after his 18th birthday, he had mysteriously died. I want my dad gone. This was from November 24th, 2020. I want zero contact with him, mail, text, in person, etc. Every time he contacts me, I can't get over it, and my focus in school and out is always disrupted because of all his texts and mail. I don't want him at school or games. I get so scared when he's around, and I feel trapped. I can't even go get a drink or go to see a friend or anything because he's right there on the bottom row. On November 19th, there was a basketball game. He got to the girls' game an hour early and was filming them, as well as almost coming in contact with me, at least 10 feet away and coming. By sneaking out, then the police left because they thought he was gone. So then my dad came back into the gym, and that's when he almost approached me. The school has forced me to go with him before, and I do not need him there. It's terrifying. I know what he's capable of, and that is what scares me. He has traumatized me, and I don't want it to be like this anymore. He needs to stop. Sometimes I'll even check behind curtains downstairs because I think he is there. He has violated the restraining order countless times. I'm not even going to the games anymore to see my brother be honored because of him, and it's not fair. I want custody completely flipped to my mom. She will show her medical records that she is clearly not mentally ill. She has never gotten to show those in court. It's all just lies. I want no contact, period. He makes everything so hard, and it's so scary, and someone needs to stop him. I need an order of protection. I've tried to get one with the sheriff's department, even though he will just break it. I really need someone to do something. I need my own attorney. My guardian ad litem isn't even talking to me, and she's doing things and saying things that I disagree with. No one in this court has listened to me or Grant, and that is why he is gone. So please, I really need someone to listen to me. This is from October 21st, 2020. Ever since Grant, my brother, passed 3 months ago yesterday, my dad, Aaron Solomon, has been stalking us and just coming at us by throwing away and forgetting about boundaries I had set. I set boundaries for myself a while back, and he pretty much went by those for almost 2 years. But why when Grant died, he came after me. He literally just entered himself into our home and was hugging me and playing with my hair. I hated when he did that. It makes me gag, and it makes me think of the things that he has done to me. Soon after, he said that he was coming to get me. He has taken me away from my mom multiple times, and he has used the police to take me. It scared me so bad. He hasn't left me alone, and he has even contacted my friends and close people by sending videos of them. He even filmed up the homecoming court's dresses. It makes me sick seeing him or talking about him. It's so messed up. We recently got a restraining order put in place, but he has been violating it a lot. He isn't supposed to contact me, but he has been. He is coming to school a lot, and it scares me so much. I haven't been able to go to school because of how scared I am of him. What makes me even more scared is that I've witnessed how mad he gets, and when he's mad, I know he's really mad. I know he killed my brother, and now I'm scared of him coming near me or coming to get me again, or hurt any of us. This is an essay I wrote about what I want to do in the future, and it's about the FBI. The career I want to pursue is to be in the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I know that this is something I want to be a part of, and I have a few reasons behind this. I want to be in the FBI to help the innocent. I can use my thoughts, and it is just something that I really, really want to be, because it is extremely empowering. Helping others makes me feel content and happy. I want to feel that, and I want to make others feel better. I also want to be in the FBI to give justice to those people who have done. I have not received that. And eventually, when I do, I want to give back and help others. Well, I mentioned that I want to help others, especially women and children, in the same situation, and I want justice for myself.
Mind-blowing case, a very frustrating case that definitely needs justice. So a few weeks ago, I was scrolling TikTok and I came across a TikTok about the Grant Solomon case by an account under the name Chronicles of Olivia Backup. And some of you may have seen this if you've
Uh-oh, I don't think it still did it. Okay, it did. Yeah. Are you here now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Now to close this out, I want to go to Google. Oops. Google. Okay, okay, so here's one of the lawsuits right here, right? Brentwood Academy officials refused to report repeated rapes of a 12-year-old boy, right? A Williamson County private school is accused, and remember they're in Williamson County also, right? Of allowing teenage boys to repeatedly sexually assault a 12-year-old boy, then downplaying the attacks and refusing to report them to authorities, according to a lawsuit seeking at least $30 million. The lawsuit filed Friday in Williamson County Circuit Court by a Nashville parent and her son accuses 4 8th grade students at Brentwood Academy of repeatedly raping and sexually assaulting the 6th grade student during the 2014 academic year. And there it goes on down. See where it says And they don't have the kid's name, of course, for their own safety, But it's supposed to have in there. Uh, okay, let me get to that judge. Oh. Uh-oh. There he is right there. Senator Jack Johnson. He's the one right there. He's married to wife Deanna. 3 children. He's the culprit that's involved in it too. He goes to that church also with the Gracie and them. Let's see. Gracie. There's a lot of things right here that you can see right here. See if it's got. I don't remember what the name of that church is, And Judge. Yeah. Johnson. Okay, you see right here. Former Nashville anchor accused of rape and murder. It's got it on here. And there's a July Tennessee high school student named Gracie who, let me go on further down right here. Don't go there. Oh, it's not wanting to show at all, is it? Wow. They can let me see it all. Okay. Accusation of child abuse and murder. There's in Solomon family. According to fellow news anchor Holly Thompson, he became a financial advisor at the investment of Merrill Lynch and all that. Okay, let me go on down. There's video testimony from Anna Smith, a former student, fellow classmate at Gracie Christian Academy in Franklin. Okay. I think it goes on down, Going down to where. Here's where Aaron Solomon sought a continuance as a Davidson County Circuit Court Judge. Philip Smith was appointed to his current role. Judge Smith further quote that the court is quite concerned about the safety of the minor children, even if in a supervised setting with the mother. He ruled against the mother. Ain't it crazy how they just going against the mother right there? And we're going down further. That was Judge Smith, and let's go on down. We're going down further. According to the Freedom from Gracie, was placed in Child Protective Service custody, but now under the care of the family friend of the Solomons. That's where they took him. Gracie went on to there when she went to North Carolina. That's where he was doing crazy things with her. And Aaron Solomon's lawsuit and friend to the Solomon children alleged in her affidavit that the counselor at Grace Christian Academy refused to help Gracie, and the two Solomon children expressed fear of their father routinely. Hicks went on to corroborate Gracie's alleged abuse, saying that Grant has told her everything. Okay, and then we go on. There's about his death and all that. The owner of the facility, Tucker Ward, told the home pages that he arrived at the facility 30 minutes after the incident occurred, but declined to comment further based on the advice of the attorney. Oh, here's that Steve Berger. Speaks during Grant's ceremony of life. You just never get a ninth grader make an appointment you to talk about Jesus. Crusty old gray hair preacher, but Grant did. See, he lied about it. That's what Gracie said, you know. Going down. And see, then they tried to pass a law keeping them from not being able to get sexual abuse allegations. Judge Johnson's office, okay, Grace Academy Christian Communications Director Christy Bender declined to comment on the allegations. Judge Johnson's office relayed that she could not comment on the allegations given the ongoing litigation. And Judge James Martin will preside over the Solomon's next hearing. But that was several years back, probably. Because they are not letting her do any more cases, remember. Not letting her do anything else anymore. It gets the daddy. Okay, let's see. But I had found it at somebody's thing before, and I've got to find it again, where she actually gives the cord to all the different, the judges and all that. You know what I'm saying? I need to find that case right there. They must have got it where they're not to be questioned. They want to shut her up. Yep, that is right. This is Justice for Grace and Grant right here. Petition, law enforcement, and the courts. This sounds like a plot of movie, but it's very real. This is Casey Gracie Grant. Here he is. And there's a story right there, and there's about Angie, therapy sessions, and all that. See if it speaks about Aaron takes a, yeah, in April the 8th, 2013 also, Aaron takes a check from a desk of an employee at the children's school, Grace Christian Academy, which is part of Grace Chapel. Much more on them later. After stealing the check, Aaron forges Mindy Hicks' signature. Mindy Hicks does not have the check writing privilege, so this was flagged at the bank and brought to the school's attention. Robbie Mason, head and owner of Grace Christian Academy, declared 8 years later that Aaron, who was owed that money, but it's proven Aaron did forge a check. And May the 9th, 2013, around midnight, Aaron tried to strangle Angie with a hairdryer cord. Grant witnessed this attack, see? Angie and Grant were so scared that they did not tell anyone. Aaron lies to Angie's parents in the hospital, telling her she tried to commit suicide. Let's see. And see, Angie's not. And it just goes on and on. And this is just the first part one of the case. I'm going to see if it will let me. I'm going to download this. And then I'm going to get the second one. It's, oh, here's what it says this time in front of Deanna Johnson, girl at a campfire. It says, meet the Solomons and stuff. Let me get down to the part where it's got the Deanna Johnson. Okay, Gracie tells her mom, do. Church accusations, and Angie's father said that Aaron could do anything he wanted with Angie, even her. What? So I had mentioned earlier that the school was actually affiliated with their church, or rather cult. Grace Chapel is a fundamentalist church. They raise their daughters to be meek, submissive, and to cater to their husbands' every demands. Angie's parents, who had tried to have her committed, attended a similar church, and Angie was raised in that environment. The church covers up accusations of sexual abuse by gaslighting the victims and providing refuge to the abusers. Angie's father had said that Aaron could do anything he wanted with Angie, even hit her. The founding pastor of Grace Chapel, Steve Berger, gave a sermon called Biblical Qualifications for Bringing an Accusation Against Someone, in which he said there must be multiple witnesses, such as people, fingerprints, or DNA, in order for the accusation to be valid. So, at the times of the Me Too movement, those accusations weren't biblical since there weren't any witnesses. Since sexual assault is not only performed in front of a crowd of witnesses, those rape accusations are invalid, he claims. He stepped down from his position in 2021, denied that he had anything to do with the backlash he had received from attending the January 6th Capitol riot because, of course, he's a Trump supporter. He's not a Trump supporter. Anybody that acts like that. Grace Chapel had some very prominent members like the Tennessee Governor Billy, Senator Jack Johnson, and his wife, Judge Deanna Johnson. Remember her name for just a minute. Also, the judge who had presided over the divorce and visitation case and threw Angie in jail was also a church member. How about that? He was also one of their members. He was also a member. See, in January 2019, Angie and Aaron are in court again. Who did I tell you to remember? This time they're in front of Judge Deanna Johnson, the senator's wife and fellow Grace Chapel member. See? She accuses Angie. Here it is up here. It's time in front of Judge Deanna Johnson, the senator's wife and fellow Grace Chapel member. She accuses Angie of harassing Aaron and tells her claims of abuse are without merit and bars her from filing any civil cases against Aaron for 6 years, which coincidentally will be after Grace is 18. How's that legal? Also, she refused to listen to 3 different mental health professionals who all said Angie was sane and already had PTSD thanks to the years of torment for Aaron. Oh, wow. Also, in sometime in 2019, 2020, Aaron goes and buys burial plots for himself, the kids, and Angie. Wow. Wow. So it looked like he was going to do a murder-suicide, huh? That turns 18, and then that's all that, you know. He'll get past all that. For Gracie and Angie, Aaron's account of what happened never made sense. sentence and stuff like that. That was a week later when Aaron is explaining to Angie what happened, which has been recorded. He said Grant was getting his stuff out of the back seat. Angie was shocked to see the condition of her son's body. Remember, she's a doctor. It was intact with very little injury. Hospital staff recorded a bleed wound on his skull and 3 bruises, one on his jaw, one near his left hip, and another on his right thigh. Where were the injuries from being dragged down a hill? Where are the injuries from the rocks, from being under the hot car? No fractures, punctures, bleeding, or any other wounds beside the bruises. Although Angie requested an investigation, the cop took Aaron's statement and promptly closed the case. Before Angie could get to the hospital, Aaron refused an autopsy, any post-mortem inspection, or organ donation. Aaron also refused to have the truck investigated to see if there was something faulty, yet he said the truck was faulty, right? This was when she was 14 years old. She gave the account at Freedom for Gracie. And Gracie talks in detail about the sexual abuse and the various ways Aaron controlled them and terrorized the family. Even though she had this temporary restraining order against him, he shows up at Gracie's school whenever he wants, and no one prevents him from coming on the property. In the video, Gracie says she thinks her dad killed Grant to keep him from going to court, and she fears for her life, which I think so too. A week after the video is uploaded, Aaron files a suit against Angie and 20 plus other people, including friends of Grant's, for having a smear campaign against him. And 2 weeks later, DCS finally removed Gracie and placed her in foster care. Aaron is still her custodial parent. You got that? They never relinquished his right as a custodial parent to Gracie. And hasn't been charged in any other crimes that he's been accused of. See all that? What's wrong with this, y'all? Now tell me what's wrong with this. So anyway, when they were going like that, and it said, I don't believe you, Mr. Solomon. There's the sins of the father, the death of Grant Solomon. It goes on and on. Betrayal, trust, or Steve Berger. Oh, yeah, this is the one I was looking for earlier. What we can say for certain, however, is they never reported any abuse, even though Tennessee is a mandatory reporter state. They never protected Gracie or Grant from any abuse either, and during one incident in 2018, Headmaster Robbie Mason even allegedly forced Gracie into her father's car despite her begging and pleading with him not to. Now that the allegations are public, Grace Chapel is denying any mishandling of the case, while Grace Christian Academy has not released a public-facing statement, and Steve Berger Ministries is demonizing survivors of assault. Grace Christian Academy does, however, send out aggressively threatening letters to anyone who speaks about this matter publicly. So he sends out threatening messages to anyone who speaks about sexual abuse. Prominent guests at Grace Chapel include the power couple of Jack Johnson, Republican state senator, and his wife, Judge Deanna Bell Johnson, the judge who signed the order forbidding Angelia Solomon from seeking any legal redress for the abuse she and her family have suffered. Coincidentally, Judge Johnson has made a habit of troubling rulings against victims of abuse and assault, as can be seen in how she treated the victim in the Brentwood Academy case. There she is, and there he is. There they are. There's the Senator Jack Johnson. There's Judge Deanna Johnson. Okay, and here's this about the little boy, okay? In August of 2017, a 6th grade student was sexually assaulted and raped by several other pupils in a locker room at Brentwood Academy. And after the assault dismissed and belittled by the headmaster of the school, Curtis Masters, Judge Johnson ruled that the case had no merit and dismissed it. See that? She dismissed it with prejudice. You see that? And that Ian had been repeatedly raped by these 5 other students, right? According to an article in the Tennessean, Judge Johnson even faced accusations of plagiarism because her ruling seemed to have been copy-pasted from the defense's brief. Not to be outdone by his wife, Senator Johnson allegedly helped cover up the case of a 3-year-old child. Listen to this. Not to be outdone by his wife, Senator Johnson allegedly helped cover up the case of a 3-year-old child who had been sexually assaulted by a teenage Sunday school teacher at Fellowship Bible Church Daycare in Brentwood. See what I'm saying? See exactly what I'm saying here. Although he does not worship at Grace Chapel, Judge Philip E. Smith has been criticized for similar attitudes as his colleagues, who went viral a few years ago for an outburst of rage from the bench in which he screamed at female attorney Cynthia Cheatham. Later on, Judge Smith neither explained nor apologized for the incident, stating to Fox 17 that I stand by what I said. It was the same Judge Smith who not only excluded the testimonies of 3 medical professionals, all of which were in Angelia's favor, he also dismissed her claims that Aaron had tried to strangle her, responded, I do not believe you. I do believe you tried to commit suicide. Although they proved that she didn't. You know what I'm saying? Additionally, several sources have confirmed to me that Judge Smith is rarely friendly with Aaron Solomon's legal representation, D. Scott Parsley. Both of these judges have sworn and signed oaths of office which state that they should rule fairly and impartially. Whether this is what they currently are doing, I will leave to the reader to decide. The church is not Aaron's only source of supporters, though. As a former WSMV news anchor and radio personality, he has what he describes on his link page as good friends and former colleagues, as one of the biggest networks in the areas. These pictures show him with Jeremy Finley, the chief of investigative reporting at WSMV, and Terry Boulder, story guy and human interest reporter. WSMV cannot be reached for comment, but their lack of reporting on the story speaks volumes, I should say so. I see this guy here, that guy there, and that guy there, the dark above, and it says, and then there's his best friend, fellow Grace Chapel attendee, personal friend to Steve Berger, and a viral sensation in his own right, Sam Johnson, who garnered much media attention last year when his film going out of its way to attack and demean a boy wearing a dress to high school prom. Okay? And so there they are sitting there nicely or smugly together. After Gracie's allegations emerged, Sam, who both Gracie and Angelia had blocked because of his abusive and manipulative messages towards them, used his dog governor's Instagram page to chastise them for speaking up. He used his dog's Instagram page. In his message, he said that talking about the allegations publicly brings shame on Jesus' name. Speaking about it speaks. You hear that? According to his LinkedIn page, Aaron Solomon doesn't just hobnob with people like David Briley, the one-time mayor of Nashville, and Davidson County, though. Y'all do not vote for these people I'm mentioning. Do not vote for them, you see? As a private wealth advisor for Clint, Cole, and Associates, a team working under the Merrill Lynch umbrella, Aaron also congregates professionally with clients of substantial means. Who all does and doesn't entail remains to be seen, but it should be acknowledged that a job like that comes with significant social capital. Clint, Cole, and Associates could not be reached for comment at this time. There he is. And finally, We shouldn't forget his years of volunteer work with Our Kids Tennessee. Remember, I said that he helped supposedly with a nonprofit about sex abuse and all that, survivors of sex abuse, and yet he was sexually abusing his own daughter. Look, volunteer worker Our Kids Tennessee, lead and founded by Sue Fort White, a nonprofit organization that provides services to vulnerable child survivors of sexual abuse. You see that? Brings services to vulnerable child survivors of sexual abuse. Our Kids has many connections to social workers, guardians, CASAs, lawyers, and judges. When reached for a comment, Sue Fort White said that Aaron Solomon resigned from the board in 2016 and was merely attended the nonprofit's events as a guest. Why would you have him as a guest at, you know what I'm saying? Why? He wanted to be around all those kids. Are they allowing him to do this to them kids? Our Kids Tennessee? Why are you letting a pedophile? Why? It's evidence. They got the records. Gracie got the records. It's been known. It's in the courts through that it's been done. They can't deny it. Although there's evidence to suggest that Aaron started a fundraiser for Our Kids Tennessee as late as 2020, she also said that as a former DCS worker, she trusted the process. There's a problem here. You know, she's one of them DCS workers. Possibly that's one of the bad ones. As well as policies and procedures of the Tennessee Department of Children's Services. But how could this situation even come this far? Why would anyone endure a spouse as abusive as Aaron Solomon? The simple answer is religious and emotional indoctrination. Like I did. Like I had. Not supposed to divorce unless he has an affair. Angelina Huffiness was raised in a fundamentalist evangelical Christianity. And as a report by Dr. Reed states, she suffered abuse at the hands of her parents as well. See that? This comes at no surprise since many fundamentalist churches preach not to spare the rod so as not to spoil a kid. So it goes on and on. You know, this mindset of constant debate and unworthiness. Okay, here's what Steve Berger said. Here's a little bit more about that preacher, right? On which end of the spectrum the Trinity Berger, Grace Chapel, and Grace Christian Academy fall becomes clear when you listen to the sermon Steve Berger has tried to scrub from the internet. His 2018 sermon about the Christian Blasey Ford hearings. In it, he espouses the so-called two-witness rule, dictating that any allegation of abuse needs to be substantiated by at least two witnesses. The same rule has been controversially discussed in other church-related sexual abuse cases, like in the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints and Jehovah's Witnesses, since it allows abusers within a church to continue victimizing the children as long as there are no two witnesses. Berger also warns that there is no pity. Don't have pity on the false accuser. So he's calling them false accusers. You hear that? Don't allow emotional testimony to supersede the facts of case. Don't pity for them for the degree of self-inflicted judgment. Statistics show that false accusations are exceedingly rare. Between 2 and 5% of sexual assault allegations are fictitious. But at Gracie's attorney, Alex Little points out, sexual abuse is one of the hardest crimes to detect, prove, and prosecute, since there usually aren't any witnesses. Sexual abuse and assault are by their very nature private crimes, not typically the kind of stranger danger assaults children were warned about in past decades. It follows then that Pastor Berger is really saying here is don't have pity with victims. You hear that? Don't have pity. More recently, Pastor Steve has streamed a series of sermons entitled Exposing the Enemy, Securing Our Victory to his congregation. In it, as well as in the accompanying notes that worshipers can receive as a newsletter, he states emphatically that it's a righteous thing with God to repay with tribulation those who persecute you. So they supposed to treat us with a tribulation because we persecute them for persecuting us? Excuse me? One can only wonder at whom this series aims, but its release on the 7th of June 2021, less than a month after Grace published her YouTube video, might give the reader a hint. So she's telling people to go give them tribulation. He's instructing them to go give Gracie tribulation, y'all. In the sermons, Berger also directs his congregation to employ so-called imprecatory prayers, most commonly understood to function akin to a curse. While he does not mention Gracie or her mother by name, he does say that it is just to pray imprecatory prayers against those who have mocked the church, accused falsely, sown divisiveness, and threatened the unity of his congregation. And from Berger's point of view, that may well be what he thinks Gracie and his mother did. He further says not to pay attention when lies are seemingly supported by outward circumstances, to keep patience, obedience, and promise in his ministry, and guard your heart from bitter, vengeful hatred, which mirrors the language used by Sam Johnson in the text messages sent from his dog's Instagram page. In disclosing the abuse brings shame. Oh, look at there. Disclosing the abuse brings shame on the name of Jesus Christ and on his church to do this in open public. You see that? It brings shame on the name of Jesus and on his church to do that in open public. Wow. Just like they have told me. He wrote to the abused and bereaved mother and daughter, brother stating that he loved them all, but that he would not immense hate built up in their hearts. So anyway, I had to get this out there. I am going to download this to my thing as well. And I will try to do my best to get back into doing this. And let me show you the link down here. Are you there still? Jackie? Yes. There's the link if you could copy and paste it. Also, see what I mean? Yes, it does keep happening over and over. And we need to be hyper vigilant. And these people, you are quite welcome. Now it's really, oh, thank you. But did you see the link that I just shared? If you didn't, here it is. I'm posting it right there. It's right below. Do you see it now? That's the whole thing that I was trying to read parts of it a minute ago. If you can't see it, I'll try to, I hope that I could figure out a way. I can't remember what your email was. It's under my name right here, Darlene J. Clark. I just wrote it. The HTTPS thing right there. You can copy and take a look at it later as the further proof behind it on what I had said. If you can't see it. Okay. I'll try to get it I'm gonna mail it to myself in an email. I gotta remember what your email address is, but and all that. But try to touch base back with me again, okay? And I'll try to get it to you some way. All right. Well, thank you for that, and God bless you. God bless everyone. Thank you for being here. It's been a long one today, but I felt like it was very important. Say thank you and God bless you. Hope you can sleep well. See if I can get